After months of quarantine, we're all interested in how we can become our best self. The team at Permanent Makeup and Cryo is here to help you get the flawless makeup look every day without the extra effort or time. When it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy.
The beautiful Homestead Miami Speedway used to be a championship crowning site on the NASCAR calendar. However, it still plays a pivotal role in the Outlaws title quest. 175 laps at this progressively banked mile and a half for the last bit of normalcy on the season is coming up next on Pit Stop TV. Good evening, all, and welcome to the virtual Homestead, Miami, Florida. And Andrew Cardinale IV joins me alongside for the call and production this evening. And Andrew, most drivers are taking tonight as their last race that they can really control their own destiny. A good run tonight might just be the solidifying factor into clinching a Final Four spot.
And you've already touched on, I think, one of the most important parts about this racetrack, the fact that while it is one of the youngest tracks on the NASCAR circuit, it is one of the most historic in that it has crowned so many champions, has been host to so many so much history in the NASCAR National Series, whether it's the Cup Series, whether it's the Xfinity Series, the Truck Series, it doesn't matter. There's been so much history go down here at HMS, almost said Hickory Motor Speedway, Homestead Miami Speedway. There's always been so much going on, and even now, where it doesn't play host to the championship finale, even here at the Outlaws Sim Series, it's not the finale race, it still has so much buzz going on around it, and it's still such an important race. It is a driver's race, and these guys are using it tonight as their final opportunity, as you said, to put themselves in the best position they can to move on to the Final Four.
Absolutely. Following tonight, we may know one of those drivers competing for a championship in about 4 weeks' time. And here it is. Here's our playoff standings, and you can look at it. And wow, you know, Jonathan Jennings is atop the standings. He's accumulated so many points over the course of the regular season and through the playoffs. All of that doesn't matter when there's been 6 massive point getters throughout the season. You see that cut line is split between Adrian Schumacher and Seth Fitzpatrick. Both of those drivers have 4 wins on the season, some of the higher totals on the season. And it's been so competitive amongst those top 6. It's time to see maybe if a Jacob Reeves or a Scott Bailey, if they're going to compete for a championship, they're going to have to step up tonight.
I think there's a lot to digest with these standings that you're looking at. We've already touched on really the big points. And, you know, I've been watching from afar almost with this Outlaws playoff schedule, playoffs just in general, you know, doing these points graphics each week, but not being on the broadcast, even being one of the races at Charlotte. But one thing I've noticed is that Reeves and Bailey have just kind of scooted through each round. They've been able to just get enough points to kind of move on. And I don't mean that as a slight against them. They've been crazy consistent. However, I don't think they've been crazy consistent in the top 5 enough. They haven't been earning enough points to actually kind of move up to that next level. And of course, it hurts them to not have the wins and stage wins that these other guys do throughout the season. So just everything is stacked against them right now. But this also could easily turn into a bit of a wild card race. I know this is, you know, we're talking about it being kind of a driver's race in their control, but all it takes is one thing to go wrong and change the complexion of this race late in the day, and this could turn into a bit of a wild card race, an opportunity for Reeves or Bailey to get their first win on the season, one that would be arguably the most important for either one of them.
Absolutely. And I am stoked because on the, I guess, negative side of it is that we have 8 amazing drivers here. I can't immediately rule out any of them. But we're gonna have 4 very talented drivers and not be able to compete for a championship this season. But we have amazing competition coming into this round, and it's gonna be absolutely cutthroat competition. I can't wait to see how this round plays out.
And talking about the season as a whole, of course, you guys have traversed one heck of a schedule. I think one of the most diverse schedules you could possibly wish up for NASCAR Cup Series vehicles, especially in this Gen 7 era. We come in tonight, race 33 of 36, with just 3 to go after this evening. Atlanta Motor Speedway, North Wilkesboro Speedway, and Richmond Raceway. And Emerson, this is also, I think, one of the most diverse playoff schedules you could ask for. 2 road courses in the first round obviously were nice for Adrian Schumacher, but now he's been kind of just trying to tread water and keep up with guys that are starting to win races around him, like Jonathan Jennings, who comes in tonight as the top seed of this round. What do you expect out of this third round of the playoffs?
Well, tonight I think we're gonna see drivers that have kind of been holding the mantle this season, like Jonathan Jennings, Max Service. They're gonna come to fight tonight, come to play tonight, and really we may see one of those 2 punch their ticket in tonight. But that's not to count out anybody else. Obviously, Adrian Schumacher, he's got his wins on the season. They've come out road course. He's still searching for his first oval win since race 9 of the first season. Seth Berger has gone on a little bit of a winless drought. Seth Fitzpatrick could use a little bit momentum, but I think a lot of these drivers are setting up at least points cushions heading into Atlanta because it is a super speedway, and that could mean anything. I mean, we had our first playoff spoiler winner come at Talladega in the form of Jason Miz, and we very well could have that again at race 34 next week. And then the short track at North Wilkesboro. While yes, our short tracks have gone green this season, this one's a little different. It's going to be very small. It's a 3/4 mile, I believe, or sorry, 2/3 mile. Narrow. The walls are essentially guardrails. It's going to be a different vibe at North Wilkesboro, and it could produce some chaos. So again, I think we may even see some drivers race themselves into mistakes tonight, putting a lot of pressure on themselves to perform tonight in anticipation of the next two races.
Yeah, I think Wilkesboro sits around that 5/8 of a mile mark, and it's definitely treacherous. Then you have the 3/4 mile Richmond Raceway. So two very unique racetracks to end this season after, well, very unique, really 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, you could say the entire last bit of this schedule, race 25 all the way through race 36, I think is rather unique. You have the high banked half mile at Bristol. You have the very unique 1 1/3 mile Nashville Super Speedway, then the Daytona Road Course, Milwaukee, the flat 1 mile there, the Charlotte Roval. I think really the two most like courses or tracks in this last third of the schedule would be the Daytona Road Course and the Charlotte Roval, and then everything is just unique from there. The flat 3/4 mile Lakeland USA International Speedway, then of course the big Talladega Super Speedway, the egg-shaped Darlington Raceway, then of course tonight here at Homestead. When you look at it like that, one of the most bland tracks on the schedule, just being that it's kind of a traditional oval-shaped oval. But yeah, definitely a lot of fun here this evening, and I think a lot's going to change tonight depending on who actually wins this race.
Absolutely, and I know you had it up for a little bit. Actually, I'll ask if you can bring it back up. You say the track map. You're talking about, it is one of the most blandest here on this side of the schedule, and yes, it is. But something that you point out, especially because it's similar to Charlotte in this way, turn 4. It's much more of a sharper exit out turn 4 than it is turn 2. And if you study the track map hard enough, you can see that as well.
Yeah, you don't really see it here, but there is ever so slightly a difference. You see it better on the racetrack, and actually, I wonder if we can maybe even pop it up. Yeah, you can't really tell from the blend, but you're right. It is a lot different, and I might even be able to grab somebody on the backstretch, and perfect. This is Scott Bailey, Emerson. You'll see exactly what you're talking about here in 3 and 4. It's just a lot tighter.
Absolutely. A lot of these drivers are going to gravitate towards the bottom throughout the race, but here turn 4, it's going to catch some drivers out. You have to put a little bit more wheel into it to get that car up alongside that outside wall, and it's a minor inconvenience. I'm sure when drivers get into the groove of the race, they won't really notice it, but it is the difference here. You'll see in turn 2, it's a lot more smoother actually to exit out of turn 2.
We're on board with Scott and Bailey currently in the waning stages of practice. 6 minutes left on the clock. Let's go ahead and bring up the ticker, actually, check out who's where. And you can see car 23, Vincent Cortez, the fastest in practice with that Nexus Esports Chevrolet Camaro on track. Moving over to Nexus recently with 213 Simware. And let's see, I believe he was running the Toyota Camry a long time this season. Only recently switching manufacturers over to that Chevrolet. But regardless, it looks good. Glad to have Vinny in the field. Max Service, I noticed Max is in a new paint scheme here tonight. Emerson, what do you know about it?
So this is his throwback scheme that he ran at Darlington last week, but unfortunately he got caught up in an incident on lap 16, and he was very he was looking forward to Darlington a lot, and the fact that race got cut short hurt quite a bit. So he's actually running this just in spite of what happened at Darlington, hoping for a better race tonight and give a better run for his beloved Starcom fiber machine.
Another new paint scheme on track, actually, is this one from Seth Berger, moving the number back on the door. And, I gave him a little bit of, I razzed him up a little bit in the EWRL Discord saying, well, I don't quite like that number where it is, but I'll be honest, this is one of the better looking iterations of a number being slid back on a race car. But, Emerson, I know one of the big pre-race things here with the Outlaws Sim Series is those driver interviews. Who do you have coming up?
Well, I've been looking around, and I think I want to kind of talk to those two drivers at the bottom of the point standings. First, I want to bring up, actually, Scott Bailey. in the 11 machine. I think he's got one of the most work to do today because he hasn't had those runs. And go ahead and bring him on up now. Driver of the number 11, Scott Bailey. And Scott, you finally made it here to the round of 8. What is that confidence level like coming into a race like tonight? You're 10th on the practice charts and a long way to go.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident in this race. My goal is top 5 in stages and then be able to be close at the end. Put in a lot of practice this week, so I think we got a pretty quick car. Practice charts might not show it, but I didn't really go out and run qualifying set, so just trying to dial it in right now and make some last minute adjustments before we get going.
Now, you have not been privy to the playoff points that the other drivers in this round of 8 have accumulated. What is your game plan maybe tonight, or is it a 3-race game plan that you're putting in place to get yourself into a championship 4 slot for Richmond?
Yeah, certainly it's not going to be an easy task to be able to get that done because just the hole I'm kind of having to dig myself out of. So I think I've got a stage race. Unfortunately, I've got to try and accumulate as many stage points as I can this week and get a good finish to hopefully not be in such a big hole to where maybe I can go off strategy and try and get a win in one of the other races. So ultimately, I think a win in one of the next 3 races is probably going to be my only shot at getting into the championship 4, but we'll see. We got 3 long races, so.
Well, there you are, one of our round of 8 competitors, driver of the number 11, Scott Bailey. Actually, one more question. This Hardy scheme, a beautiful looking car. I'd imagine this is maybe because you weren't able to run a throwback last week. What's kind of the idea behind it?
Yeah, it's exactly that. I had meant to get my throwback done last week, and I was out of town for work, and I was like, you know what? I have almost had it done, so I'm just going to go ahead and run it, and I like it, so.
But there it is. Driver of the number 11, Hardy's throwback there. And looking to see if he can pounce on an opportunity here in the round of 8. Scott, best luck to you tonight. Hopefully we'll talk to you a little later on.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
And that was driver of the number 11 in Scott Bailey, Andrew. And yeah, it's quite a hole to come out of. I didn't want to say it, but he said it himself. It's probably going to be a must-win situation for this 11 card.
And you mentioned Jacob Reeves as well in the number 22 car as one of those drivers at the bottom of the standings, one of those drivers that maybe we want to talk to quickly. So I'll turn things right back over to you, Emerson, but I think definitely Reeves and Bailey, maybe not must-wins tonight, but it's looking like it could easily become that after tonight if they don't execute properly.
It certainly could be, and we'll go ahead and bring on up driver then of the number 22 machine. And I guess first I'll talk about this paint scheme. Is this a little bit of a Halloween-inspired paint?
No, this is actually something I came up with maybe a couple days ago. Just trophy hunting. That's what we're aiming for right now. Aiming for the trophies right now. That's what we're aiming for.
Oh, we just talked to Scott Bailey, one of the other drivers in a similar position to you. I'll even ask the same question. You have not been privy to the playoff points that the other competitors in this round of 8 have been. So what is your game plan maybe tonight or over the course of the next 3 races that could or is going to get you into the championship 4? But I have a feeling what I know you're going to say.
Consistency. Y'all harped on it last week. Consistency, keeping the car up front. Yeah, I mean, we're trophy hunting. Yeah, I mean, who ain't? I mean, we're trying to get that win, trying to go ahead and just lock ourselves into Richmond, but consistency will pay off, I believe. Just gotta make sure that we keep this car up front, make sure we keep our nose clean, and just mainly consistency. Just keep running up front. We've had a good couple of races these past couple weeks. Got second last week at Darlington, so I was pretty stoked about that. So if we can keep it up front, we get some stage points. Mainly consistency.
Well, there you are, driver of the number 22, Jacob Reeves. Time's about to tick over to qualifying, so we'll leave you to it. Best luck to you, driver. Hopefully we'll talk to you a little later on.
Hope so. Thanks, guys.
That was driver of the number 22, Jacob Reeves. And that's right, practice is coming to a close, Andrew. We're getting ready to get to our 10-minute qualifying session. And I know you probably know it just because you've been, covering it from afar. And you ran a couple races, actually, so I guess that's how you would know it. But 3 laps in qualifying tonight and every week. And it produces some unique opportunities in this one-shot qualifying or single-car qualifying format that is different than other leagues.
Yeah, single car, but actually 3 shots, and you can see the weather there on the left side of your screen. 78 degrees Fahrenheit in the air, 81 on the track with pretty mild winds, 8 to 10 miles per hour. It's windy, but it's not crazy, and already drivers are waiting on those temps to come down. The only car on track so far, and that's actually just been changed, is Kevin Powell. Vinny Cortez, actually, he's not on the racetrack, but he is in his car waiting to fire up. And there he goes. He fires that car up, as does Andrew St. Cour. So a couple of drivers heading out onto the racetrack now finally, but only 3 out of the 21 or 22 cars that we have. So I think Guy is switching over to qualifying setups and then also just waiting on the track temps to continue falling as we are working into the evening. And here comes Powell right into the pit lane. So let's pick up St. Cour. I'm interested to see kind of how these guys play this racetrack. If you paid attention during the NASCAR Cup race here, only a couple of weeks ago, Joey Logano's in-car is actually the one that I paid attention to, and I was following along, and the way he was shifting here was kind of interesting, and he'd pull 5th right around halfway, right around the start-finish line, and then drop into 4th in the corner. Do you think we're going to see that here tonight?
I hadn't even considered that, but that's one factor I could definitely see tonight, especially on the longer run. I think in qualifying, especially these qualifying sets, are probably going to be more geared to just keep it in 4th or 5th. But certainly in the longer run tonight, as drivers start to fight with tire wear, because I think a lot of these drivers are going to try to throw their cars down onto that bottom side. It's going to be hard to get those cars down there. I think that downshift is going to help slow them down and pull them up off the corner.
First flying lap in for Andrew St. Cour goes purple. It's a 33.261. And there's Vincent Cortez showing up to the qualifying show as he goes quickest in car 23. And he's running up higher on the racetrack. He might not have been that first lap, but is now. I did some practice, not any kind of practice like these guys. It was on the iRacing default setup, so there is that. But I noticed that this car got really free as soon as he dropped it in 4th gear. I don't know if it was the rears just trying to spin. I don't know if the car just didn't like that balance. There is more force, actually. It's hard to explain, but basically more force happening within the car when you're at higher revs, so that can help the car corner better. Kyle Heyer actually explained that to me a couple of years ago, but something about being in 4th gear on these very, very slick high banks at Homestead, the car just gets free. Vinny Cortez, lap 3 on the way currently. Last lap was a 33.12, and there we go, Hunter Simpson, car 15. He's new to the scene, and he is quick.
Absolutely. I was going to mention, it was a name started to brew up in the Discord recently, and this is, I believe, his first start here in the Outlaws Sim Series. Andrew St. Cour, and now Max Service, and now Vincent Cortez goes top of the chart. So all the times are coming in, and Vincent Cortez, like, as you mentioned, Andrew, just jumped over to Nexus and is trying to put a nice little debut in that Nexus paint together here. And Max Service looking for a little bit of revenge from Darlington and trying to lock himself into the championship 4 with a win tonight. 1
lap left to go for Max. This is his heater. He's a half 10th off of pole. It's 5/100ths of a second and a little bit of change. This time to the start and finish line. It looks like it's quicker, but is it quick enough? The answer to that question is no. Picks up 3/100ths of a second on Vinny Cortez. That's not enough for pole, unfortunately, for car 81. Julio Villalobos on track, and this is a pretty special one for him. It is, to my understanding, right? It is Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, and he is sporting a very, I guess, fitting paint scheme.
Yes, it is. He's embracing, Dia de los Muertos and giving it a great representation with this beautiful purple car. And Julio has brought some heat to the track in terms of paint schemes, but he's also brought the heat in terms of speed. He had a great run last week at Darlington and was on pace to try to take second, ended up coming a little bit short. And Julio, I'd imagine, is also going to be in a similar boat tonight, looking to place himself in the top 5. He's probably here also to trophy hunt and try to win this race. He goes up to 8th quickest there.
third lap is at least a little more muy caliente, not totally up there, but at eighth place, it's not bad as he moves ahead of Jacob Reeves, Matthew Setzer, and some others on track. Here's Justin McMahon getting onto the track in car 20, and actually let's touch on Reeves once again. We talked about him in practice, you talked to him in the waning stages of practice. On track currently, this is lap 2. And he'll have a chance in a moment to go for his final heater, it looks like, going for maybe not pole, but at least as high up on the grid as he can.
Absolutely. With the stages tonight, I mentioned them a little later on, but I believe we're going 35 and 79 for the top 10.
Oh, he's fifth. He just picked up a ton.
I was just going to say, to put himself in a better position for that lap 35 point handout, he's going to want to be up here in the starting order, in 5th place right now in qualifying is looking pretty decent.
Yeah, he picked up a ton there on lap 2. I'm not sure if it's going to stick for lap 3, but lap 3's been the best for these guys so far, but I think guys like Vinny and others were on the top side that lap prior to get a run coming to the line. Might have got the wall there, but coming to the line, he's just a little bit slower. I'll tell you what, though, that's an impressive run out of Jacob Reeves, somebody that arguably needs a win, or at least close to it. That's a good run to see for car 22. Here's Justin McMahon again, car 20, onto the racetrack. This is lap number 2 for that Chevrolet. And it looks like everybody else might be waiting either to the last minute in qualifying or just not qualifying at all. I mean, Stutzman, Solms, Holt, Gardner, Smith, Rogers, Aldrich, and Miz, none of them on track.
I can see maybe 1 or 2 more coming out here. I think most of them are going to wait. Justin McMahon, though, our all-star race winner, goes 3rd quick, is still looking for his first points-paying victory here in the Outlaws Sim Series, but a good step with right now in 3rd, and he's still got some speed in it.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know this name yet at all, but seeing McMahon go 3rd quick on lap 2, that's impressive. And he'll come around turns 3 and 4 this time by and try and put in that group interactive Chevrolet Camaro a little higher on the board. Only 2 more spots to go and only 4 100ths of a second to work with, but can he go any faster? There was a bobble out of 4, and he does not pick up. Actually, about 2/10, a little over 2/10 slower. Stutzman, though, on track finally in car 71, and that is definitely a throwback.
Absolutely. A beautiful looking car. Jeremiah Stutzman here in the 71 machine, and he's going around to start his first timed lap. And Stutzman, he's one of the drivers that he likes to wait after a good 6-7 minutes into the qualifying session, kind of see what the other drivers have done. I have no doubt he's probably even watching it on the broadcast just to kind of see what lines or what he could pick up, because Stutzman, he's a very cerebral driver. He's always thinking. It's always strategy and where he can find that advantage. And going out here later in qualifying, here he comes with his first time lap.
Cerebral, I like the use of that word, as he's going for it. Well, that was his first time lap, granted that was up on the top side. This is kind of like plate qualifying extended version, where these guys are running 2 laps up on the top of the racetrack and then dropping down in most cases. At least it seems like that's the fast way to do things from Cortez, Service, and others. So Stutzman running 1 more lap up top of the racetrack and actually drops down a little bit in 3 and 4. That's kind of surprising to me. I would not have expected that, but another thing I noticed in running practice laps, which it seems to be more and more valuable by the day, is running the top side can actually sometimes slow you down, Emerson, because of the way the track is kinked up there. The way you have to keep yourself in such a fine line, it can actually slow you down coming to the start-finish line in 3 and 4 as opposed to 1 and 2. You get a better launch out of 2, you get a worse launch out of 4, I noticed, on the top side of the racetrack. So running the bottom actually gives you more racetrack to work with on exit, so even though you're running towards the bottom, you might actually get a better run to the line, and clearly Stutzman thinks that he can run a faster line on the top and arc down. Not bad. I like that a lot. We'll see if it's faster.
I like it. Jeremiah Stutzman, again, he's always one of those drivers to bring out something different to qualify, and it looks like it's
slower
not
that last
going
lap.
to be the best there for him. He's got to have some work to do here from the 13th starting position, but again, Stutzman, one of those drivers who always goes out later in qualifying. I wonder if the track actually got slower, because it almost seemed like that, or at least the 3rd laps got slower as the track temp has gone down a couple degrees.
Yeah, down to 80 degrees square on the dot. I wouldn't think that would make the track get slower. I know if you get too cold of a racetrack, it can slow down a little bit, but it doesn't seem like we're at that point yet, does it? 80 degrees should still be plenty quick. I wonder if the wind direction changed. I didn't notice actually where it was coming from beforehand. It might be more of a headwind in one of the straightaways, and maybe it's just hurting these guys, but I also think if he were to run the bottom, if he had committed to the bottom side of the racetrack, he might have maybe found a little more. It's a tricky thing to do, run the bottom side at Homestead, and it's not what your brain wants to do. I think a lot of us still in that kind of system of you want to rip the lip, you want to be up on the top side of the racetrack, pushing the cushion like Kyle Larson, but it's just not that realistic right now on iRacing and the NASCAR stock cars. It just does not work the way that you want it to. And oftentimes you got to run the bottom, especially open setup where you can maximize speed. You've got to run the bottom side, it feels like.
Absolutely agree, right? You think of Homestead, you want to run that wall. I'm personally a fan of when Kansas was a kind of a wall ride only track.
Yes.
And same here, because I felt I could, I was actually pretty disciplined doing that. And then you get here, especially with the NextGen car in the past few months, you've had to kind of commit to that bottom side.
Well, here we go, 175 laps on tap. Emerson, first off, thanks for having me join you. And we kind of, usually when we're on broadcast together, I'm running things, and usually when it's an Outlaws broadcast, you're running things. So it's a bit of a hybrid that we're going with here, but let's go ahead and meet our starting grid tonight. On pole, Vincent Cortez in car 23, fastest time in qualifying. That kid is on fire. Max Service, second place tonight in qualifying in his throwback number 81, with Justin Command starting from third. Starting fourth, though, you'll find Andrew St. Cyr, both of these guys non-playoff drivers. Starting fifth, though, Seth Berger in car 77. He's in the playoffs still, with Jacob Reeves trying to make his way through. He's a lot of points out, but he can use tonight as a big-time springboard for himself to move on to the final four. Starting seventh, you'll find Kevin Powell, also not a playoff contender, but recently moved into the top 20 in points. Hunter Simpson joins us tonight from the 8th position on the grid. The final row in the top 10, Jonathan Jennings is the points leader coming into tonight with a recent win at Darlington, and Julio Villalobos in car 45, he starts 10th.
Now some playoff drivers with a little bit of a struggle in qualifying, and Adrian Schumacher and Seth Fitzpatrick. That is your cut line right there between those two drivers, 11th and 12th, looking to see if they can work their way up to the top 10. Row 7 will find another playoff driver, and Jeremiah Stutzman actually having a little trouble getting rolling there, and there he goes. And the 5 of Matthew Setzer will start to his outside. As we fall back to row number 8, it is another playoff driver in Scott Bailey, and our season 2 champion Greg Holt. Not able to put in the title defense this season, but again is still showing up and run the races he can. Falling back to row number 9, Nathan Aldrich joins us for another Outlaws Sim Series start, and Talladega winner Jason Miz will start 18th. And back to row number 10, we'll find Adam Gardner and Devin Smith, a couple of drivers who just got eliminated from the playoffs. And the last row, and Matt Rogers and Doug Solms wrap up the 22-car field.
22 cars this evening ready to go for us from Homestead Miami Speedway. Thanks so much for joining us here at Pit Stop TV. That Pratt and Tile Stone Award, though, qualifying pole award, I should say, for car 23, looking pretty nice out front of the field. And that Chevrolet Camaro will get ready to launch this race from the restart zone there, the Geico restart zone on the outside of the front stretch. Waiting for this race to go green. 175 laps on tap, and we're going to turn them loose here. Vinny Cortez leads us to the green. Down the back straightaway and into turn number 3 for the first time tonight. And you can see everybody fanning across the racetrack. A couple of brave souls out there on the top of the track, Emerson, trying a top side, but it's just not working that first time.
Yeah, especially right now with the cold tires. Maybe, just maybe, there'll be a little bit of a grip and pace up there on that high side. And Cortez, a dive to the inside. He'll reclaim the race lead after losing it off the initial start.
Back at a turn number 2, Vincent Cortez leads. You can see everybody, again, vying for position, moving around all over the racetrack, and definitely looking for their bit of grip. As here we go, side by side for second. Berger to the inside of Service. St. Cyr looks on from behind, and quickly the bottom line, it powers away, and Seth Berger's Service able to do nothing about it.
And here we go. We got a couple, all three of these guys up here are teammates. And Andrew St. Clair, I'm sure, is maybe even a little bit of a satellite to the Swift Racing group that's up here. But in teammates, and Seth Berger and Max Service, two playoff drivers, they may not be teammates for long, and they may even have to forego one another. And when it comes to championship four, and a blink out for Max Service and Andrew St. Clair.
Oh, no.
They're in the same house.
That is huge. And usually, you know, a blink is one thing, but that is a synced connection issue for both of those guys. Sometimes a blink could be, you know, localized to one computer, even within the same house. Could be one computer between the two, or even just one Ethernet cable between the two. But the fact that it's happening to both of them simultaneously, that's definitely the internet connection as a whole. So maybe something with the router or the modem, who knows. But they both come back about a half lap later. They don't lose any positions. They do back up a little bit, the entire field from our top two. So Berger able to challenge Cortez here. This is going to be a good one.
And now Seth Berger, right, he won this race. He won Homestead Season 1 and is looking to do the same here, challenging his teammate Vincent Cortez. He goes to that high side. I'm using high side loosely. He's on that outside seam. Cortez stays glued to the bottom, though.
Side by side now, Berger gets up there. A couple of cars slow. Those are Kevin Powell and mostly Andrew St. Clair dropping way back, but it's side by side for the race lead out front on lap 5 of 175. If you thought the bottom line was going to get in the train and pull away, think again, because Berger just passed on the top side of Homestead.
There he goes. Berger Nation rise up as he goes to the front now, and he'll look to try to open up a gap to the rest of this field. And now everybody behind here, Service on back, looking to regroup from, I guess, the little jolt that happened through the field when both Service and St. Clair had a connection problem. Here comes Schumacher. This is new out of Schumacher. He's usually one to play the long run game, but Schumacher quickly through the field. And he even mentioned at Talladega a couple weeks ago that he's going to bring a new Schumacher to the track, and this may be the first sight of it.
Yeah, Adrian was actually leaning on Simpson that time at a turn 1. That's what caught my eye initially. But thankfully, no significant contact, it seems. More drivers leading on each other out of turn 2. But everybody got away fine as Service continues to plummet through the field, now 5th position and sliding after starting 2nd on the outside of the front row. You even see Jennings now to the inside. Fitzpatrick is down there. A lot of big names are starting to work on behind this 81 car. And, yeah, Service just is... Max just does not have it right now. That slide is going to, I think, continue.
Right, and this is where it is. Max actually told me he's going to be one of those. He's going to fall back early. He's intentionally kind of falling back early. The first 20 laps or so, he's going to let the setup kind of kick in. Hoping for that long run. But at what point do you have to fight some of your playoff competition? Like right now, duking it out with Jonathan Jennings, he might have had to turn up the wick a little because this is somebody you do not want to let by.
Yeah, I mean, playoff points, well, not playoff points, but stage points, they stack up. We've seen that in the NASCAR Cup Series recently. Ross Chastain, actually, yes, he had his great move at Martinsville this past weekend, but because Brad Keselowski, as St. Clair actually runs the purple lap there, because Brad Keselowski was disqualified for Martinsville for being too light over the scales, Chastain actually would have advanced on stage points that he accrued alone from the disqualification of the 6 car. I know that's not the same kind of situation we're going to see on the Outlaws Sim Series, but that speaks volumes on the importance of stage points even in these playoff races and these playoff rounds. They're only 3 races long, almost like mini seasons, but stage points are so important even in these little rounds. It's one of the best ways you can make up points on drivers ahead. I mean, look at this gaggle of race cars through turns 1 and 2. This is crazy stuff.
Absolutely, everybody packed up and trying to find a way around. Still 3 wide back here for the 10th position. Stutzman wants to get out of it. Doesn't really have a choice, though. He's kind of boxed in by a couple of his playoff competitors in front. And Kevin Powell and Matthew Setzer to the outside.
Here's an onboard of Powell as he works to the bottom now. Stutzman looks down to the inside of car 71. Stutzman's put together a pretty good season. Got a couple of wins again this year. And Powell fights right down to the bottom. This is just great racing. This is what you come to Homestead Miami Speedway for. This is, I think, exactly what everybody wants out of this place.
Absolutely. I was going to mention, this is probably one of the more raciest races of the playoffs for a while, other than maybe Talladega. we're still seeing these drivers fight for every piece of real estate they can, and this track is allowing them to do that. The track conditions, a little bit of contact, Holt, and I believe that's Powell getting together there.
Yeah, the 3 and 93 door contact as Miz ships it up the inside, and that puts him into the side of Powell, who goes up the racetrack. There was nearly a crash that time. You might not have known it, though, because they held things so nicely. But Jason Miz up the inside, he might have won at Dega, but he needs to cool himself a little bit. Turn down the afterburners just a moment, getting to turn 1. That was really, really scary for a lot of these guys. Thankfully, no big issues. Up front, there's a battle brewing for third as Schumacher and Fitzpatrick as the two reels in the 82, and you can see him looking to the inside. Fitzpatrick, though, having to hold himself for the moment.
It's crazy that you can physically see the cut line here. At least coming into today's race, the cut line was between these two drivers. I'm sure Fitzpatrick knows that, and he feels that he needs to get around his 82 machine sooner rather than later to kind of focus on the race at hand. He looks to the outside to do so this time as Schumacher stays down to the bottom side, and they'll meet up here off of turn 4, both on the high side.
I'm glad you're talking about the cut line and where it kind of precariously falls, because all of these drivers, I feel like, in this round of 8, feel like they should be in this round of 8 and feel like they could absolutely contend for a championship. The only two that I'd argue maybe you wouldn't say could fight for a championship would be Bailey and Reeves. That's no slight to them, but just the other 6 have been so much better. They've been fantastic. They've split the wins almost exclusively between them. Save Jason Miz and McMahon with the All-Star race. I think Zoltan Herzeg and Nicholas Shelton. Otherwise, all the wins this season, and Reese Schaefer. Otherwise, all those wins this season have been between the top 6 pretty much. They've just been so good. So where do you put that line? Where do you separate those top 6 drivers? And there's a reason the cut line is only 2 points right now, separated right now between those couple of drivers. It's going to get really difficult, I think, to find and, well, work towards who actually moves on to the Final 4 and who does not. And, of course, at least one is guaranteed to do so on points. Only 3 races, only 3 wins available for these guys. At least one of these guys will do it on points alone.
Absolutely, and I mean, who knows what we'll get at the Atlanta Super Speedway, or Atlanta Motor Speedway turned Super Speedway, because we saw them race every single lap of the 110 laps we had at Talladega. I could very much see the same thing happen at Atlanta, especially.
And the groove is that much thinner.
Playoff race. Oh yes, it's gonna be much more tighter, and the intensity is gonna ramp up.
This is the battle for third still. Fitzpatrick got tight underneath Schumacher that time. It's lit up the racetrack and nearly made a bit of contact through 3 and 4, but has the advantage across the start-finish line. The top just doesn't have... You can still defend beautifully up there as Schumacher's doing, and even in the case of Jennings, he's actually come on to these guys and is starting to go around the outside, and yeah, that time will go on by Schumacher, but it's tough to work the top side with these race cars here at Homestead. Not impossible. A lot of these guys might set their car up for it, but it is tougher than it used to be in the Gen 6.
Absolutely. Again, you're naturally inclined to go up there, and then you run 2 laps up there, and you're like, all right, well, we can't go up there. And so you got to kind of figure out.
Adrian caught the fence out of 4. It wasn't anything big, but he caught it just enough. And actually, Bailey, I thought he was going to try and Ross Chastain things for a moment. And you know what? I tried things. In a last case scenario, like complete worst case, last chance, you could Chastain 3 and 4, even 1 and 2. You might not be able to make the next corner, but you could do it.
and that's right. And I think that's what you look at when you look at like the Ross Chastain move is there's no way he would have been able to continue that race. That was the last ditch effort, last corner kind of thing. And I think the North Wilkesboro, that wall. Either, it's just flat concrete.
Oh, it's not happening at Wilkesboro. Absolutely not. But I think the thing between Martinsville and Homestead, and then we can kind of move on from this, is, this is a wider radius of the corner. You're not putting as much, I think, force. Well, you're putting more force, technically, because you're traveling at a higher rate of speed. But you're not going to be doing as much damage, I think, to the suspension because it's just not as tight of a radius of a corner. So it's slightly straighter, right? It's not going to bend things quite as badly. And being that it's on iRacing as opposed to real life, I think you could get away with a whole lap. You're just not going to be able to turn off that wall afterwards. So it would have to be a white flag thing and really no opportunities after that. But 20 laps into this race, at least it will be 20 laps in this time by the start-finish line, things have definitely changed, and actually things are continuing to change. There we go. As Jennings fights around the outside, a whole lot of positions just changed, but car 91 move him into the top 3.
And Jonathan Jennings is rising to the occasion here, knows that there's a championship 4 slot up for grabs, and has put himself into that 3rd position. I'd imagine just looking at chasing down Seth Berger, maybe in the long term, maybe not, for the stage or anything, but certainly for a race victory that could be at hand here. And Jennings duking it out through playoff contenders and his teammate there in Seth Fitzpatrick, making it look easy very early on here.
Yeah, and I look at the top 5, and Jennings is kind of the oddball out, right? Berger, Cortez, Fitzpatrick, and Schumacher, they're all going to be in the same Discord channel. They're going to be working together, thinking about strategy together, at least to a point, and certainly not trying to hurt anyone's chances. Same with Max Service. But Jennings really feels like the oddball out right now in the top 5, and that's just kind of the way it's been this season, right? You have a lot of those guys from Swift Racing or affiliates that just work their way towards the front. I was even a part of that at Laguna Seca, so I kind of know how that operates. And they might not always be necessarily working together, but they're not working against each other, and that's the important part to it, is they're certainly not going to hurt each other's races, at least if they can prevent it. As I will say, Max Service starting to work his way back up, just moved into 6th position, so that strategy you were talking about of laying back early is starting to work out.
Scott Bailey, he just caught the wall big time there. He's actually going to dive back to the inside of Max Service. And just a quick note, Fitzpatrick is teammates with Jennings, and Scott Bailey is as well.
Okay, you're right. Sorry.
Yes.
Fitzpatrick, yes, he is in that group, not with Swift Racing. You're absolutely right. That was the one I couldn't ever keep straight in my mind, even racing with these guys. So Fitzpatrick and Jennings, then, they're the 2 oddballs out at the front of the field in the top 6, if you will.
Yep, and Bailey, he had a good run at Max there, but Max, I think that car has come to life. Like he told me, 20 laps or so, and that thing was going to roar to life. He's now looking at his teammate Adrian Schumacher duking it out with Fitzpatrick here, and I wonder how he'll take it.
Fitzpatrick fires off the corner. Here's a chance back to the inside of Schumacher. Meanwhile, our 2 leaders, they are very close. Berger and Cortez. That's kind of what made me think of the fact they're working together for sure as these guys continue to battle, even the battle with Reeves and Simpson further back. Fitzpatrick will try to get clear of Schumacher, and he will, out of turn number 2, but that 2/10 gap up front, I think that's going to maintain around that way. I think Berger and Cortez, especially Berger, needing these laps led, needing these stage points coming up soon, is going to stay out front of the 23 car. I don't think Vinny's going to fight that. But then you also have to think about maybe how Max Service can help Schumacher out right now, and maybe how Bailey can help Fitzpatrick.
Absolutely. I wonder here if Adrian will just lay over for Max, see if Max can rile up or at least get Fitzpatrick out of place, and Adrian could try to take advantage of it.
That's exactly what happens.
Yep. There's it back into the top 5 for the 81 machine. It will be intriguing to see if he can get past the 2 car and also look forward with people with his fellow competitors in the top 3. So here he goes, trying to find a way around Fitzpatrick, and we'll see how quickly or how long this takes.
On board with the Canadian as he powers down to the inside of Fitzpatrick, and I think Seth is a smart driver as well. He sees that Max is coming back up. He laid back early and is starting to work his way through, gives Max the bottom side of the racetrack, and Seth's going to fight, but he's also not going to put himself in a bad situation, right? He's defending up top. He's giving Max the bottom. He sees Max is faster. He's saying, yeah, go ahead and do your worst. See what you can do down there. I'm going to run my own race.
Absolutely, and that goes to the point you were saying earlier. Even inferior tires can defend very well on that high side. It is powerful. It's just not the race line. And a little bit of a late dive. They're making catch Max off guard. They're going to get tight down here in 1 and 2.
That was close. They're so close up out of the second corner and down the backstretch here at Homestead Miami Speedway, past all those palm trees, and still side by side into turn 3. Service on the bottom side. He's going to try and send it down to the bottom and get clear of that 2 car. Does he do it? No, but Fitzpatrick is up in the fence and he's riding it out of turn 4. That could be a big problem for Seth.
I imagine that was not in the game plan for Fitzpatrick. He's now under attack from Schumacher. Fitzpatrick now tries to regroup and try to keep himself afloat in this race. And just a reminder that stage points are up for grabs. The top 10 will be awarded stage points in about 6 laps.
Seth rode the wall in 3 and 4, and I was a little scared. I was honestly a little scared he was going to bend a toe link or something by the time he got to turn 1. But thankfully that car is okay. As Hunter Simpson now joins this fight, it's the fight for 5th position. As Schumacher and Fitzpatrick both fall back. And Simpson, he's been sitting back saving his tires now for the last 10 laps or so. He's got a chance, I think, to get by both of these guys pretty quickly.
Absolutely. And, what we get to see here, Hunter Simpson, his first start, is how he works through and what he does with these competitors. These are people he's rarely raced or never raced before. How does he approach, playoff drivers in this scenario? We're going to find us all out as we watch him.
Worth mentioning, Devin Smith, 16 laps down out of this race. He parked it very, very early on, so he is done for the day. Matt Rogers still in this race. He's 21st, 18 laps off the race leaders. And Nathan Aldrich and Adam Gardner, Jeremiah Stutzman, they're all battling towards the back. Stutzman, I'm kind of confused as to why he is 18th. Hopefully that bumps up soon. Not having a good start to the day.
Absolutely not. I'd imagine Stutzman is probably going to be in a butt of maybe hope for one of those magic yellow thingies that would regroup the field.
Here's a look at these guys back here with Gardner and Aldrich. Stutzman is just seemingly off right now. 8/10 off of Doug Solms in the 18th spot. And he's fighting that loose car. And that's into the inside wall hard. No. Pulls the jump. Big problems for Stutzman. That car is broken.
Yeah, that very much could be and maybe is suspension damage down the left side for Jeremiah Stutzman. Now, I was just about to mention that he did win this race, win at Homestead back in season 2, our first open setup season with the trucks, and Stutzman is struggling there.
He's all over the place.
This is not looking good for one of our playoff drivers.
And again, we're talking about that separation. Where do you put it in this top 6? Well, it could be right in front of the 71 car. He is completely junked right now. And the leaders are coming around. He's only got about a half track left before they get to him, and he's going to lose that quickly. As actually Berger and Cortez, they narrowed up for a moment, thought they were going to fight, but I'm not sure he can hang on. I'm not sure why he's trying to hang on at this point.
I couldn't tell you. Not something Stutzman usually would do anyway, but maybe this is desperation and maybe hoping something happens while the field is still relatively bunched up in the next 5 laps.
The left front is visibly towed way in right now. Oh boy.
I think maybe he was trying to get the pit road last time. It might have just gone out of control for him.
You might be onto something there. He's going to come into the pits. This is huge for Jeremiah Stutzman.
And you just hope if you're looking and you're rooting for Jeremiah Stutzman that this isn't a typical 8-minute 20 kind of suspension repair that's going to go on the 71 machine.
I can't imagine it being anything else. And he comes in 10 points out. I think if you're Stutzman or a Stutzman fan, this is realistically must-win territory now.
Absolutely. So he gets his 4 tires, but it'll mean very little in the grand scheme of things that he has to wait for repairs here.
Let's go back and try and find the moment that it happened. On board with car 71. This will be the lap leading into it. So we're riding on board with Stutzman, and out of turn 4, things just go completely wrong for him. He looked a little free out of 2, but not too crazy. Into 3 here, kind of towards the bottom. Hooking that bottom seam. The car, it even stepped out there, actually. That's where it started to get sideways, and it just continuously gets worse. And at that point, yeah, you're along for the ride. Pulls the jump. A lot of damage.
Now, I can't imagine, unless maybe Stutzman just had not as much practice as he would have liked this week. I can't imagine he wouldn't have adjusted this car. He wouldn't have practiced for a late afternoon, night kind of race where he wouldn't have felt this car getting free in previous practices, or maybe he's just running a setup that maybe wasn't even meant for nighttime.
Lead change, by the way, we did just pass the stage at the completion of 35. And Cortez has then taken over the race lead from Berger. So kind of teamwork there, giving Cortez the lead to get across the line, get the most stage points possible, and help Seth out. And that puts Seth, I want to say, definitely ahead of Service or tied with Max Service after one stage. And considering Service came in with a 6-point advantage to the cut line, Berger a 3-point advantage, that's good company to be in. Schumacher as well is going to be plus on that. Fitzpatrick, though, Fitzpatrick loses a point actually to Schumacher, so it's now a 3-point gap effectively between them. And Stutzman, Reeves, and Bailey, they're all in must-win territory. So Service and Berger are patting themselves, but really it comes down to the fact that realistically, Schumacher and Fitzpatrick, that's the cut line.
Yes, it is, and I wonder now if maybe them battling, talking about Schumacher and Fitzpatrick, is actually coming back to bite them right now, and they're both struggling for maybe a lack of tire grip or tire performance out of the right front, and they're both kind of struggling for pace right now. They're both kind of running right around each other, and they've lost about the same amount of spots.
But with as narrow as a gap as it is, all Seth has to do is get up there, and I think once they put new tires on, if he comes out close to Schumacher, all he's got to do is go up there and challenge Adrian and rattle him up a little bit, and I think he'll be in good, sitting in a good spot. I think if you can just rattle him up, challenge him, pass him, it's going to be more difficult later in the race, I think, to pass back. That's just my personal thought, especially if he's able to pull an undercut potentially and get by Schumacher that way. So there's some options for Seth Fitzpatrick. There's certainly possibilities out there for him to get on top of this cut line, but right now nothing has changed. Jennings, Service, Berger, and Schumacher, very unofficially, are still your 4 drivers above the cut line. While these guys continue on, wrapping up lap 40 of 175, we're going to go Pit Stop TV side by side for a moment and rejoin you in just one moment.
Have you found yourself trying to hide your joy because you're unhappy with your teeth? Your smile is the first feature noticed in an interview, on a date, or in family photos. We want you to be able to shine bright as your best self, and our teeth whitening system is the perfect step toward restoring your confidence.
Welcome back to the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway. We're on lap 47 of 175 as we rejoin you under green for the Outlaws Sim Series. Race 33 of 36 on the season. Max Service sitting in the third spot has recently passed Jonathan Jennings, and he is quickly approaching teammate Seth Berger. Vincent Cortez recently taking over as race leader and has set sail from car 77. But this, the battle on the racetrack, I think we all have to watch right now for second place as Service closes in on Seth Berger, and I think that's going to be a quick change of hands. I don't think they're going to battle too much. I think realistically, these guys work together, Emerson, but a lot going on. We've already had some drama. Jeremiah Stutzman in big trouble as he comes in tonight 10 points out of the final four. And, that was a big bobble for Max.
Yes, it was. Maybe Max sensing the need to push here. Maybe to not necessarily just get by Berger, but to get by Berger relatively soon if he's going to have a shot at Cortez. We'll see here, because I'd imagine whenever the pit stop happens here, the inevitable pit stops, Max is probably going to have to do the same thing and probably have to wait on his tires a little bit. So we might see a weird mix throughout the race. And here comes a couple of teammates down pit road. I'm sorry, not teammates, but Gardner and Setzer coming down the pit lane.
Setzer comes into his box, overshoots it a little bit, and he will have to correct him back up. Gardner, though, a much better run into the pit lane. He'll get service. 2 tires up. There's 4 tires, and he will leave here in just a moment. Other drivers to pit recently include Greg Holt, although he has not left the pit lane, but also include Matt Rogers 14 laps ago and Scott Bailey 7 laps ago. And Emerson, this is kind of the one that caught my eye, at least. I think yours as well. Bailey coming in this early feels like an attempt. Is actually, there's Stutzman slowing down right in front of him. Not Stutzman, Jennings, rather, to slow pit right in front of him. But this is a really early undercut from Bailey. Not a bad call, but an interesting one.
Absolutely. Maybe Scott Bailey feels the long run pace is what's going to get him the stage points here at the end of lap 79. That's pretty much the next point spot that these guys are playing for. We're watching 2 teammates come down the pit lane in Jennings and Fitzpatrick. And here they come. Is that a slide to the box? Actually, no, perfect for Fitzpatrick.
Jennings drops down off the right side jacks. The left sides will go up now. So he'll be exiting shortly on the Popeyes Chevrolet. He will leave. Fitzpatrick, a little bit of a longer time. He's down and away. And actually, that stop in general is a little bit quicker. 0.3 of a second faster in the box. McMahon also in, and he will be leaving here shortly. The number 20 takes a second to hesitate and get going, but he will leave. And here comes Jacob Reeves, mirroring that of the guys ahead of him. Just trying to follow, I think, Jennings and Fitzpatrick. He saw they came in early. Let's go ahead and cover up that undercut and try and actually use that undercut against the guys that he's behind right now. I wonder, are the guys up further going to wait a little bit in this run and try and use the full extent of this fuel?
Yeah, it's intriguing. We've seen pretty much all the Last Chance Racing playoff cars show their hand, and it's now just the 3 Swift Racing playoff cars, and of course the non-playoff drivers up there as well, running their race and trying to see how this plays out here. Everyone going long. Max Service sees his personal benefit for going long, but I wonder if Seth and Adrian see the same.
Adrian Schumacher pulls up behind Jonathan Jennings, trying to work by Kevin Powell. I'm kind of surprised Schumacher's this far back, actually. Kevin Powell was around, the 7th, 8th spot? So this is kind of concerning for car 82. He fired off real well from the green, but has slowly been sliding back since then. And that Toyota Camry, not looking ill, but not looking great right now as the run continues on. Lap 54 now of 175. Let's go back up to the battle for second, though. I do wonder when these guys are going to pit. It seems like they're trying to work together at the moment. Maybe not, as Max Service ducks to the inside of Seth Berger. He's going to take the bottom side and slide on by. Potentially, no. He gets tight. As soon as he gets to that white line, that car tightens up. And is he going to pit? No, but Berger, man, he got real loose. Seth was all over the place swatting flies.
I wonder if Seth just, he hasn't been up there most of this run, so that it was just kind of green to him. Or if he lifted trying to let Max by, and that kind of shifted the balance in the car.
Oh, it could have. If you lift suddenly, it can shock the rear end of this car. It's independent rear suspension now. It's not the solid live rear axle. Just different. It just reacts different sometimes when you do different things. So that could have been what that was. A little bit of lift-off oversteer there for Seth Berger. And actually, lift-off oversteer is something you see a lot in sports cars on road courses through sweepers. So it kind of makes sense that we would see it in a stock car on a banked oval like this. Really not all that surprising when you think about it that way.
Oh, Oh goodness, you just mentioned my Achilles heel with sports cars. Oh man, they are tough. But Seth, the change of positions there, falls back to second. Max, the leading playoff driver, still 3.5 seconds behind Vincent, and here comes Villalobos.
Julio coming in from the 9th position on racetrack, but was a little further back, really, when you figure in the guys that have pitted, and he's through his box for sure. That is not how you want to pit there, but Julio gets it corrected, and will make quick time of his stop from here, I'm sure. Should cycle out into about the 15th or 16th position. He was down around Adam Gardner or so, and yeah, Adam Gardner is coming up by him, it looks like, in about 5 more seconds, so he'll be somewhere in that neighborhood.
Still have a good 8.
In fact, there goes Adam.
Yep. There goes on by. Julio back to 16th. I wonder if there's some longer run pace to kind of reel that back in.
Here's the fun onboard. It's certainly a good-looking one if you're a driver of the 23 at Al Vincent Cortez 213 Semware Chevrolet Camaro. Completely clear track ahead. 24 laps led tonight and is piling them on. He worked with teammate Seth Berger for a little bit, but eventually it's time to get going. Let Berger get 10 stage points there at the end of stage 1, and now is starting to set sail. And what's kind of interesting is, you know, Service and Berger feel like the two that are going to battle for 2nd and 3rd, and really that's just kind of seeding that isn't going to mean a whole lot. I don't think either one of them is really in danger this week. All right, obviously anything can still happen as Hunter Simpson's going to pit here, and Kevin Powell. Anything can still happen, Emerson, but it just doesn't seem like either one of them is really in danger so long as they don't take themselves out. I think they're their own worst enemies for each other and themselves. As long as they just keep a clean race, keep their noses clean, they should absolutely have probably 10 to 15 points on the cut line after tonight. As here comes Max Service. He's going to pit.
So Max running to the near full extent of the fuel tank there at 58 complete laps, or I guess 59 there, with the way that line worked out. And Max comes in actually before Seth for someone who is capitalizing on a long run pace. Shocking to see Seth and Adrian go out.
It's a household thing.
Oh, yep. Here comes Andrew. Wonder if they were, if Max maybe yelled across the house.
Do they have tin cans tied to a string? Is that how they communicate through the house?
Actually, Max has told me they actually don't really communicate at all during the races, which is, wow, how close they are together most weeks. But that could be. Here's Vincent.
Here comes Vinny, along with Seth Berger. By the way, Service gets down and away with a 15.4 second stop. A little bit long, actually, compared to what a lot of these guys are doing. But you got to consider these guys are putting in the most fuel of anybody else. So we're going to see some longer stops out of these guys, somewhere in the mid-15s. And, you know, that's something we talk about a lot in sports car racing. If you can actually try to work this race so you put as little fuel in the car as possible, you can actually really help yourself. But these guys are putting in large amounts of fuel. Also worth mentioning, Scott Bailey is currently the top driver that is pitted. He is 2nd on the racetrack with 5 seconds to Jonathan Jennings. Berger's down away with a 14.53. That is a half second faster. No, nearly a full second faster than Max Service on the pit lane. That's troubling.
Absolutely. So that position may change hands once again. Schumacher stays out to get his laps led, try to get himself a bonus point or two to help himself out. And you're right, with the way the lug nuts are, we have the single lugs on these NextGen Gen 7 Cup vehicles. You're actually waiting on fuel at the end of a 4-tire stop if you're taking a full tank of fuel. And that's what I think the drivers who pitted around the lap 40 and 50 mark were taking advantage of. Here comes Adrian.
It's still a 4.5 second gap for Bailey to Jennings, so we're going to see Scott Bailey rack up some laps led here, and he might be able to hang on for a fat share of stage points. This is actually one heck of a strategy for Scott Bailey. I'm not sure how he's going to tie it in for the race, but it's going to look good at least for a little while, as he will take over the race lead here at Homestead. There's the Fanatic number 82. Gotta get that one right. Fanatic number 82 into the pit lane.
All 4 tires, a little bit of fuel. He actually goes right on the jack. So
decent stop.
Oh, yeah, good stop there for the Fanatic number 82 machine. And Scott Bailey, you're right, has a now under a 4-second advantage. Jennings will be closing quick, but with there's a 5-second gap behind Jennings to Fitzpatrick. I think you're right. Bailey's gonna get a good chunk of stage points here if he just runs his race here.
Yeah, I mean, last lap he ran a 34.17. Last lap for Jennings was a 33.58. That is what, 0.6 of a second, maybe 7, depending on how these laps go. So it's less than a second per lap. When's the stage end? 70, 75?
79.
79. A little bit late.
Yep.
But 15 laps, he's losing less than a second per lap. He should at least come out in the middle of this top 10. Should at least hang on to a top 5.
He might just hold on to second. I think Jennings is going to fly right on by. But after that...
the tires will equalize a bit, but right now Fitzpatrick is still making up more than a half second per lap.
Oh, you're right.
I mean, these guys are still they're gonna fly up to him. I don't know how many are gonna fly past him, because once these tires equalize, guys like Reeves and Cortez are gonna find it difficult to get by. And honestly, Reeves actually is gonna have to deal with Cortez very, very soon. Here we go.
This one's gonna be interesting here, and Vincent Cortez fighting his way through these playoff drivers who kind of pitted early. He's on the fresher tires. He feels he has the pace to win this race. But Cortez, he's had pace to win races here in the Outlaws Sim Series before. He's led quite a bit of laps here for being a rookie this season in the Outlaws Sim Series, but has yet to put a full race together. This could be one of those points that Vincent has had to work on here, and we'll see how he works his way through the field.
To your point, 27 laps led in that opening stint here at Homestead. So a beautiful opening run for Vinny as he puts pressure now on car 22.
They had a run in at Pocono. It almost it looked pretty bad for both sides, kind of the way they're hitting each other there. But looks like they go through no problem. Vincent goes on to 4th. I know that was a little whiles away, but that is what I recall when I see the 23 and the 22 running with one another.
With that in mind, how about up at the front? Still a 1 second gap. I think Jennings will be there, not this lap, but the lap after. If everything holds, if these gains continue to hold. I think Scott Bailey is starting to see that and actually starting to get inside of his own head. He just lost 7/10 that lap. Starting to falter a little bit. Yeah, I think around turn 2, this next lap, we're going to see these two get close, if not side by side.
And we'll see here again. These are teammates. I don't, imagine Scott's gonna, try to put Jennings in any situation and vice versa. But I don't know if he's gonna just let him on by either.
Would it be an interesting idea then maybe for Jennings to try and actually hold off here? And maybe try and play blocker for Scott Bailey? 10 laps, I mean, I don't think they're going to, but it's an idea. And, well, Jennings does hold off at least for now, but now goes to the inside in turn 3, and that's going to be easy work for car 91. He will take over the race lead here on lap 69 and scoot away with a nice little lead on the turn 4.
And while that was on a little bit of a strategy call to kind of come in around the lap 40 or 50 mark there for Jennings, actually I can look at it right here, then that is the 20 laps around the 50 mark for the 91 of Jennings. This is not what the field wants to see. Once Jennings kind of takes control of a race, he really does rarely relinquish it.
And he pitted 10 laps prior to Vinny Cortez and Seth Berger. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. He put 10 seconds on him, and that's come down a little bit as Vincent and those guys have run their tires in, but that feels like a really smart undercut from Jennings. I think 50 laps is the mark, at least for now. But my concern is if he has to pit before the end of the race, shortly there before, or if he's able to now stretch this out now that he has the race lead. But then if he's having to stretch these runs out, the guys that just went long can actually shorten runs up. So this race actually sits in a really interesting spot. Usually, some of these races can kind of go, and a lot of the drivers might feel like, man, that's taking forever. But this is gonna be in a good spot. This is going to end in a really, really good spot, Emerson. If we're talking about 50 lap runs for Jennings, we know he can go 60. It all depends on where he pits next.
Oh, yeah. The math is coming. Yeah, you're right. The math's coming to me. If you pit on 60, easy, you're able to make it to the end of the race on one more stop. It's not so easy math if you pit it on the 50 mark. To make it on a one stop. So here goes Vincent. He's on to third, past Fitzpatrick, and I'd imagine he's going to look at Scott Bailey, and that should be an easy pass. The question here is, can Cortez close that gap to Jennings and overtake Jennings?
Well, first he's got to go through Scott Bailey. And considering Bailey, well, sorry, that was a lap car, actually. They're working on Matt Rogers. But considering Bailey is in the playoffs and Vinny is not, and Jennings and Bailey are teammates, I don't think it's going to be an easy ride for car 23 by any means. Bailey might not hold him up, maybe too much. He's not going to fight like it's the end of the race, but I don't think it's going to be just an easy pass and go at the same time. I think definitely Scott Bailey is going to try and make his life a little bit difficult, and now you're starting to wonder, only 5 laps to go or so in this stage. I think Scott Bailey hangs on maybe to 4th. Maybe not 2nd, but maybe to 4th it looks like.
And you're right. Looking at that, is he going to be able? You say 4th. Does he feel maybe 2nd or 3rd is still for grabs?
He's going to take the line away here from Vinny.
He's going to try. 5 laps to go in the stage. I don't think that one's going to hold up long.
Yeah, just not enough tires. Vinny comes off the racetrack way low, gives a lot of room, a wide berth to car 11 down the front stretch. And the 23 and the 11 fight to turn 1, but really it's not a fight at all.
Plenty of room given there by Vincent. Do actually really appreciate that. 'Cause I think for himself too. Just don't put yourself in any trouble.
So back to this strategy conversation, Emerson. It's 100 laps to go. Realistically, I think if you're Bailey, do you maybe pit now? I'm trying to think. That feels like that's inserting a stop. So no, you don't want to pit now. I'm trying to run through some strategy options because, right, I mean, you can make it here from this one more stop and then another. Is anybody else? I know these guys that are running 60. They're trying to do it on 2 stops, 3 runs. I don't know if anybody else is going to be able to do that. Jennings already shorted himself 10 laps. He's going to be tight because these guys are running 60. They're 5 to the good. Sorry, live calculations here for a moment. Jennings may have to pit again regardless.
It's going to be really close for Jennings. I think Bailey obviously has to. I think a second time no matter what.
I think Jennings has to pit with 5 to go unless he saves.
I could see that. Bailey, I think his plan here is collect the stage points and pit. I think that makes the most sense. And then you make the rest of your race a 1 stop and you're just focusing on that.
Yeah, I mean, he put himself in a position really early to have to 3-stop this race. It's very interesting, actually, how this race is turning out. It's a 2-stop if you can stretch it out to 60, 60, 60, or at least 58, 58, 58, something like that. Or I guess 58, 58, 59, something close to that. Otherwise, you're very much in a 3-stop scenario, and it's definitely a 3-stop for Bailey. He pitted 36 laps ago. In fact, this is the longest run I think second longest run he's put on this racetrack. So he's getting close to his longest run. Does he pit maybe at lap 80? Just get to the stage and immediately come in?
I believe so. I believe that's probably what would be the case. That's probably why he pitted at 40. And he'll probably look maybe 85 and 130.
Well, here we go. This is the last lap of the stage, actually. Can he hold off Seth Berger? The answer to that question is no, but he might be. He's going to hang on over Reeves. So it's still a top 5 for Scott Bailey, regardless of how this battle goes.
How hard will he drive it here into turn 3? And the answer is not hard enough. If he was going to hold off the 77, Jennings will pick up his stage victory here, first one of the round. Cortez 2nd, Fitzpatrick 3rd, Berger and Bailey the top 5.
And this was the fight to the line. Now Service takes that spot from Jacob Reeves, but Max Service. What's that?
I said Reeves did have it at the line.
Yes. So Max Service has to wait until the corner after the stage end to get that spot away. So add, what is that, 4 points, 4 markers to Max Service tentatively. That is how many less? 2 less than Berger. They're going to be darn near tied, if not the advantage of the 77. Schumacher out of that one takes no stage points. Fitzpatrick takes a load. We've just changed the cutoff battle entirely. Fitzpatrick just took 8 points in that stage. Is now in a battle with Berger. I guess he might have taken 7. Regardless, that's a lot more than 0.
I might have to hire a statistician when we go to Wilkesboro. It's gonna be a lot of math.
Well, yeah, I mean, we could probably get it to where we can live track it unofficially.
Right.
But yeah, this is turning out really interestingly, and Vinny Cortez actually takes over the race lead here on lap 82 away from car 91. There's so much going on right now. So many little battles and so many little scenarios. Let's go ahead and go Pit Stop TV side by side and straighten it all out. I'll be right back to you with some strategy updates and maybe some extra points info here in a moment. We'll be right back.
Have you found yourself trying to hide your joy because you're unhappy with your teeth? Your smile is the first feature noticed in an interview, on a date, or in family photos. We want you to be able to shine bright as your best self, and our teeth whitening system is the perfect step toward restoring your confidence.
Welcome back to the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway. You just saw a big moment there with Hunter Simpson, and it's not over with Kevin Powell and Justin McMahon and other guys on this racetrack. There's racing all over the place, and actually Scott Bailey is coming into the pit lane now after his couple of slides and his odd pit strategy. So he was sliding, he's going to pit. And this is a 2-stop from this moment, which actually once he leaves the pit lane, it's a 1-stop for him. But it's already a 1-stop for everybody else. And it looks like Bailey's attempt at stage points, yes, it's going to work, but it's going to hurt in the long run. We've been talking about strategy for the last 10 minutes or so, Emerson. And it's an interesting one. And, you know, we're theorizing that Vincent Cortez is likely still in the catbird seat, and that Jonathan Jennings is likely 5 laps short. It has to save a couple of laps per run at least to make it on fuel, and that's not even counting tires and speeds to be able to continue running on these tires. So where does that put him? I mean, saving in this car is not what it used to be with the Gen 6. It's not the same, just put the clutch in and ride around. You put the clutch in, and yes, you can technically save, but it's going to tweak things with the independent rear suspension, and you also have a lot more on-throttle time. You're just not able to utilize that off-throttle time that you used to in a high-powered, low-downforce Gen 6, so it's actually a bit like when these guys were full throttle around here. Like, you just are not able to save fuel.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and I think Jennings, I was, right when we went to break, I even said it myself, I was caught off guard with how quickly Cortez caught and passed Jennings. I think Jennings is in some sort of fuel-saving mindset right here, that he's trying to make this a 1-stop. and he might have realized maybe too late that he could have two-stopped this race to the end, and he's trying to salvage it now, or that might have been the game plan all along, and he highly rates his fuel saving. So I have to see 5 laps. That is a tall task over the course of 125 laps, but he's going to try it.
I very much feel like this is a Vincent Cortez, Seth Berger kind of day. And, you know, what I was breaking down to you is kind of the way this works out is you pit at 50. Even if he stretches this out all the way from here, he goes 60 more laps on this run, he goes to 110. Another 60 laps, he goes to 170. That's 5 laps short. So without a caution somewhere, which isn't exactly likely in the Outlaws Sim Series, I don't like Jonathan's chances because he's got to back himself down and try to save 5 laps of fuel over 2 runs. And if it was 1 lap or maybe even 2 laps, it's not that crazy. You can put the clutch in a couple of points and, you know, burn a little bit of time because of what you're gaining out of that. But I think it's better at this point for him to run 50s. I genuinely think it's better for him to run as fast as he can, maybe even 40s. Come in really any time now, come in again in 40 or 45 laps and kind of break it up evenly from there and maximize what he can get out of this run, out of all these runs left to go. It's an interesting spot that he's in. Obviously, he's got something going on. I'm sure they're not completely behind the 8 ball or anything, like it kind of feels like they are. They got to have some kind of strategy, right?
I certainly feel that. And I felt what you were saying as well. Even if he is able to stretch it all the way out to say, let's say lap 113, and he was able to stretch it out then to 175, how much time is he losing by doing that? I completely agree with you. If you pit it at, you know, the 40 or 50 mark, you might as well keep hitting at that mark and just keep running as fast as you can and see if there's any time to make up that way. But Last Chance Racing, you know, there's a reason why they have 4 or 5 of them here in this round of 8. That's a smart group of people. I don't think they're completely left out to dry here.
At the same time, even if he has to pit again, as actually we've seen a link from Max Service, now he comes back and forth. What is Jennings really losing from not being on the same pit strategy and maybe being a few positions behind? He just got max points in Stage 2. He comes in with a 16-point gap to the cutoff, and he could absolutely win next week or the week after at Wilkesboro. What is he really losing if he does end up finishing 5th or 6th because of strategy? It's really not that bad. He's still points raced and got a massive haul from Stage 2. He's still going to be at least 15, probably even at least 20 points above the cut line to whoever it is, whether it's Schumacher or Fitzpatrick.
That's fair, and certainly we look at Jonathan Jennings. He's kind of been the short track ace this season. Fitzpatrick kind of did a number at USA, but Last Chance Racing, they're probably looking to show up at North Wilkesboro as well. So I'd imagine this is just kind of see what you can do tonight, and if you're able to win and get in, that's great. But you're right, Jennings stage raced because, and I was talking about that kind of at the top of the show, right? He accumulated so many points over the season. And even though he finished second in the regular season, he didn't win the regular season championships. Max Service did. He had so many stage wins. He had such a big gap over the rest of the cut lines in the championship, in the playoffs, that this cut line, him only being 16 over, was almost worrisome just because of how drastically different this cut line was to the rest, just because of how competitive the entire top 6 were.
Meanwhile, there's a battle for 5th happening now as Hunter Simpson goes up the inside of Seth Fitzpatrick, and there's really no fight there. Fitzpatrick lets him have that spot. That's definitely points racing, smart racing out of Seth Fitzpatrick right now. He just knows he's trying to put some points together in this race and put himself above the cut line, which right now, Emerson, again, he's doing that. He just picked up 7 or so points on Schumacher, and Schumacher might have got 1 or 2, I think 1 in Stage 1 more than Fitzpatrick did. So call it a 6-point difference in this race. That's a 4-point advantage right now for Seth Fitzpatrick, and that's 4 positions on the racetrack. He's got 2 currently. That makes it 6 points. This is looking good.
You're right. All of a sudden, he puts Adrian, behind entering Atlanta, and now we have a different race shaping up over the course of of Atlanta and Wilkesboro as well. The margins, again, it's gonna produce some insane, very mental racing as well as you know, what are you gonna do to get every last bit of points?
Do you recall the kind of point that I mentioned towards the top of the show that was most important? Stage points. And currently, that's what's going to change the cut line scenario tonight and double the deficit, but flip the script. And this is the battle for second. We'll mention this. This is Seth Berger, coming up on Jonathan Jennings, but they're on separate strategies, and if anything, Jennings should be coming in soon. He might be trying to save a little bit as his teammate goes by, and Scott Bailey. Bailey is a lap down after pitting 11 laps ago, and will scoot right on by the 77 car, I'm sure. But Jennings is due in really any time from now to lap 110. The rest of these guys that are up front are due in any time from really lap 115 to 125 or so. I guess 115 to 120. But again, going back to the whole cut line battle, it's going to flip, most likely, unless something changes, because it's going to be difficult for Schumacher to just make up those seconds that he's got. I mentioned as well, Fitzpatrick may be pitting earlier than Schumacher. He did that, and he got that time on Schumacher to flip that cutoff line. Did exactly what I was talking about, and Schumacher paid such a big price in that stage because of everybody else. It was so tightly packed in that pit strategy. Now you got to think about, getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. At Atlanta, if it is a bit of a super speedway race where teams are able to work together, does Swift Racing team up and try and work the 82 in? What does that do against them potentially if they try to do that? A lot of repercussions, I think, to one missed stage. But at the same time, these guys are trying to work the whole race for themselves as opposed to the stages. This is so crazy, so captivating. This is a really, really good race.
Certainly, and I like what you said. They're trying to work the whole race, because I am a firm believer that there's probably not a driver in the top 13 that entered today's race thinking that they couldn't win this race. I think every single driver in the top 13 felt they could have won this race today, and some still think they can. They're playing this out very much so that there could be a glimmer of hope that at the end there could be a yellow, or strategies might just work out in one another's favor. And I think that maybe ultimately was probably what Adrian was thinking, that not only maybe in his mind, even though he had the cut line, just kind of knowing the way his competition shaped up around him, and he's primarily, all his wins in the Outlaws Sim Series are road courses, minus the one Daytona race he took in the first season. He's had the opportunity many times to podium and potentially, or he's podiumed a lot at these mile and a halves. Hasn't been able to get it done, but I feel he still feels that he has that pace to get it done at one of these mile and a halves, and I'm sure that probably played into a part of how he played this race today.
Well, here we go. He pulls up to Kevin Powell and Seth Fitzpatrick, and this is going to be a battle now for sixth position as they fire off into turns 1 and 2. Schumacher to the inside, and he'll nose ahead for that spot. So now Schumacher tightens it up to a tentative 3-point gap at the cut line. Is it going to be 2 points after he passes? If he's able to pass Kevin Powell, he'll go down to the inside and look to the inside of the 93 car in 3. And yes, he'll nose ahead, make that 2 points between these guys. It's this close. And we're still going to have Atlanta. We still have Wilkesboro. We still have a sliding 93 in between them. It's now 1 point, but Powell's in the fence. Fitzpatrick goes on by. And was there any contact between the 2 and 93? Is that going to hurt Seth at all?
I'm not sure, but that reminds me of another thing, Andrew. We've been talking about fuel this whole time. What about tires? What are the state of your tires? Can you make it 60 laps on tires? How hard or how easy are you taking your tires at this thing? I'd imagine if Jennings is saving fuel, he's not pushing his tires very much.
Well, he's still on the racetrack. This is the longest he's run so far tonight.
But you look at that, you see drivers, you see good drivers. Stutzman got caught out very early in this race.
Still
by
6 laps
losing
down.
grip off the corner. Yeah, 6 laps down. He's fighting for scraps. He's gotten up to 16th, and he may grab 15th. But what have you ran on 62, 65 lap old tires at Homestead? Do you know how that's gonna feel? We're gonna find out, I guess.
Not good. That's the quick answer there. And you can see Jennings bobbling up off the corner. And right now, he's trying to play catch-up. I don't hear the clutch going in. And oddly enough, he's in 4th gear, which tends to be on the free side. Fifth gear would save fuel right now. So is he saving fuel, or is he going to run a short run? And is that short run really beneficial? Sure, it's a splash and dash, but if you want to be worth anything, you got to take tires. This is, I feel like, working against Jennings, but they've got to have something, right? They've got to have some kind of plan. We'll see how it works out. We're just going to keep up with this situation for the 91 car and even the 2 car. Fitzpatrick in the same boat. Again, I feel like this might be the wrong strategy for these guys, but they've got something going on.
They must have it. It may be something to see, can you make it to lap 113? And if you can, you'll play the race one way. But if you can't make it to, say, 113 or 114, you have to play the rest of the race a different way. I wonder if that's probably another thing that's going on with the mindset with the 91 and others at last chance.
Yeah, we talk about 60 laps. The number could be 62. It could be 63, but the impression is that it's about 60. Especially shifting gears. If these guys are running in 4th, that's going to shorten that run up a little bit, you would think. We'll see. I mean, this is the run where we find out. This is the run where I think everything is unlocked, and we find out where this race is going to sort out, at least to a point, as Fitzpatrick and Powell, they continue to duel for the 7th position, and this is really affecting the cut line battle. This is really hurting Fitzpatrick. Schumacher's now 2.5, almost 3 seconds ahead of these guys, and it's growing. This is actually really becoming a big deal.
All of a sudden, you look at the rest of this race can play out, and the Schumacher maybe claw back that deficit that he would have had to Fitzpatrick over the course of the next 65 laps.
Do we talk about them being even going into a place like Atlanta and then North Wilkesboro the race after? I mean, this is really going to be compelling. I think the rest of this evening, as we've got 65 laps to go, this time by the start-finish line, there's Vincent Cortez across the line. He makes it 65 to go. Jonathan Jennings, when does he pit? Not that time, so clearly he's got more than 60 in the tank, Emerson.
So maybe then 63, the lap 113 number is viable, and but at the same time, though, making this number, how much time is he losing by trying to stretch it then?
Yep.
If he is going to make it on these 63 and 62 runs.
If he can make it on fuel here and get himself to the good, no matter what the number ends up being, whether it's 5 this time or 2 this time or 3 this time, whatever it is, and actually, he's going so slow out of the corner where he was pitting, but regardless of what the number is, he's going to have a small undercut on the leaders, the effective leaders, and then he's going to have worse tires the rest of this race. I'm not sure about this. We already see that he's put himself 10 seconds behind Vinny. I think this was a play for a lot of stage points and just a mid top 10 run, which is not that bad. It's, again, we talk about the advantage that Jonathan Jennings has. It's not going to hurt him. It's just not going to lock him in.
Certainly. And I felt like Jennings probably would have been able to lock in on a race like this tonight, but he played the stage point game. He played that well, by the way.
Yeah, very
amazingly. Well. And he's made it to 113, so I guess he is going to be able to stretch it on one stop to the end. But again, you're right. He's going to have the oldest tires of the front runners, and how much of an advantage is that going to be? Where does he end up when everything shakes out? He does, for what it's worth, am I right now, like a 5-second advantage over Hunter Simpson.
Yeah, I think he's safely at least the top 5, maybe even at least the top 4, but it's a little bit underwhelming, isn't it? For him to come out so strong in stage 2 and pull all those seconds on everybody, it's a little bit underwhelming, especially because we know Jonathan Jennings is this good. Won last week at Darlington, right? I mean, he's got 5 wins in the season, comes in as the top seed. It's just underwhelming. I think that's why we're almost overreacting, and I mean, we may as well be the Pat McAfee show right now. Overreaction Monday, even though it's Wednesday. Overreacting a little bit, maybe. It just felt like he was starting to sink a little bit with this strategy, but now he's treading water. He's going to make the 65 lap mark. How much further does he go? I mean, can he go to 120 maybe? As McMahon's in the pit lane, and here is Seth Fitzpatrick. I think that's our answer. I think Jennings comes in this lap.
Certainly, and you're right. Say this was any other driver in the playoffs, we probably aren't even talking about this as much. We just expect that much from Jennings with the way he's dominated the season, all his wins leading over 200 laps. Here comes Jennings, as Fitzpatrick was in the box. Don't speed, and see how this plays out.
And there's Max Service. Wow. I think that is actually a decent cover-up from Service. He's ahead now of Jonathan Jennings. They're pitting on the same lap. Wow.
Max definitely feels he's got the long run pace.
If I remember correctly from the opening stint, he's got it on Jennings, for sure. This is a really good cover-up from the 81. I think 100% you solidify Jennings about a 4th place right now. Seth Berger going to come into the pit lane. Cortez goes at least one more lap. Here comes Simpson in the background. That is a really good cover-up. I don't know if that was planned for Max Service, but wow.
I wonder, or he just maybe finally made it inside the fuel window. And
wow. Emerson, it's a 2-second difference in the pit lane for Jennings in Service. 16.33 for Jennings, 14.5 for Service. 1.8 second difference.
Is that how much more he had to jam that thing full of fuel, or did he maybe miss the mark, not stop on the sign exactly?
I think that's fuel. I think you have to recall it's now a 20-gallon tank, isn't it?
Right. You're right. Yes.
Yeah. Crazy. This is just crazy. This is easily the most compelling race I've covered in a while.
It's wild, for sure. This is all the while, not to be a knock against it. There's only 16 cars running, and still it's keeping us glued to the race, to the strategy. That's what I've always admired about covering these Outlaws Sim Series races. They, maybe aren't always, the greatest, door banging every lap or anything. Here's Cortez. The race
they were in the first 20 laps.
Oh, they were. Yeah, they were early. But you're always intrigued by strategy. Usually it's Stutzman kind of bringing that up, but it's the whole field with the strategy today.
Schumacher stays on track, as does Bailey and Villalobos and Stutzman and Gardner. Gardner pitted about 10 laps ago, so he actually could be short. I think he's going to have to pit an extra time, trying to just put himself a little higher up on the mark by undercutting. Unfortunately for Gardner, he's already out of the playoffs. There's already actually 6 laps down, so really not that big of a concern in the grand scheme of things, as Villalobos loses a spot to Kevin Powell. Worth mentioning as far as drivers out of this race now, you've got Matt Rogers, some 46 laps down, Jason Miz, 67 laps down, Matthew Setzer, 70 laps down, and then Greg Holt, 20th position, 80 laps down, and Aldrich and Smith are out of this race as well. So 6 drivers completely done for the night, and that might soon grow as drivers visit pit lane or just other things happen to them. Who knows?
This track, it's quietly a difficult race, because like we said at the top of the show, right? The shape of the track, it looks like it's the lamest in terms of the rest of the track layouts and track types we have on the playoff schedule. And on paper it looks like just an oval, but boy, it is a tough one, especially with how hard you have to fight this car down to the bottom side, and the way these corner exits kind of catch drivers out. It is something else around here. It is not an easy task to run 175 laps around here.
We're on board with Max Service in the 5th position currently. 2 cars ahead of these guys yet to pit, so Service effectively in 3rd as he reels in Seth Berger. This is the battle then effectively for 2nd place, and this is big between these two specifically. They're darn near even, if not, I think the advantage to Seth Berger right now by stage points tonight. So if Max Service can get up there and pass, we could be talking about a dead even mark between these two above the cut line, going into 2 of the wildest races you could ask for in the Atlanta Motor Speedway and North Wilkesboro Speedway. 2 tracks have been making headlines recently in NASCAR. The Atlanta Motor Speedway reprofiled for the 2022 season, up to 28 degrees of banking all the way around the place, a little bit narrower in the corners, a little bit wider on the front stretch of the quad oval. And, of course, North Wilkesboro Speedway coming back for the NASCAR All-Star Race for the 75th anniversary of NASCAR racing next year in 2023. Recently hosted the Cars Tour, the Smart Modified Tour, and a whole lot more racing. Yeah, North Wilkesboro is officially back with a NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series date next year. Doesn't that sound cool? The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series is going to North Wilkesboro Speedway, and no, it is not the 90s, it's 2023, it is in our lifetimes, Emerson. That is cool, and guess what? The Outlaws Sim Series is going there in 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Actually caught me off guard with saying Craftsman Truck Series. It sent little chill down my spine, because that's right, the title sponsor is going to be Craftsman once again. Super excited for that. And of course, to go back to Wilkesboro, what a great vibe that it's going to be. And I was noticing here, Berger and Service, they're teammates and on, but they're both still in the playoffs. Berger did not cut Max any slack in their battle there. There's a time there in the one where Berger was pinching him off.
On board on the very nose of the 81 car is Schumacher Pitts. And this is where we find out kind of how the cut line looks, Emerson. We'll talk about it in a bit once this battle dies down, but I think Schumacher is going to be a little ways behind after tonight. Fitzpatrick is likely good on fuel, and ooh, that's a big bobble from Max that time, but I think in the position of Adrian Schumacher where, yeah, you might have the superior fuel strategy. You've got to have the pace to have the superior fuel strategy, and I just don't think Adrian has it tonight. But we're going to a couple of short tracks to end the season in Wilkesboro and Richmond, and for a road course driver, that has to make you feel pretty optimistic if you're Adrian Schumacher, right? I think that's better than going to intermediates, given the circumstances. Obviously, you want a road course maybe in this round of 8 to help lock you into that Final Four, but I think Adrian's got to rest easy, at least somewhat easy, as Cortez actually takes the race lead on racetrack from Scott Bailey, who is on a 39, now 40 lap run. I think, backtracking now, Adrian Schumacher has to feel somewhat okay with that. I think content with the idea that it's short tracks. There's definitely driver tracks. You've got to use the brakes. There's a lot of off-throttle time. That's what you get on a road course, too.
Certainly, and I think if you were to ask Adrian what his favorite oval is, first thing he probably would say would be Darlington. He's always ran well there in an Xfinity car, and he just loves that track, mainly because it is all about the driver, and he's got that finesse. We just ran a Chicago street course race last night. He's all about the slide. He is in control of his car at all times, and he lives for it.
Big thank you here on lap 128 to our partners at Pit Stop TV, Whiplash Media SimCams, SimRepMarket.com, and a permanent makeup in Cryowood, Maine. And Emerson, we have some special folks to talk about this evening as well, picking up the partnership of this race. It sounds like Silent Nightmares Photography. The pictures are silent, but the nightmares will last forever. And what exactly does that mean? I'm curious.
Well, they're a photography company. You can hit them up on Facebook, and they'll have all their albums there. They take great photos. I'd imagine this time of year is perfect, right? Coming right off Halloween. If you still got decorations up, or they're the perfect company to hit up. Their Facebook page, again, great. Hit them up. Silent Nightmares Photography. Like Andrew said, the pictures are silent, but the nightmares will last forever. Some amazing quality photos they got there.
Yeah, not sure what Houston, Texas looks like this time of year, Emerson, but as you saw a little bit of, a preview of, in the beginning of October, North Carolina is beautiful this time of year. And I don't know where Silent Nightmares Photography is based, but if you're on the East Coast right now, chances are you've got some beautiful scenery outside, or you just had some beautiful scenery outside. You could still make some beautiful pictures out of some leaves, maybe that are on the ground, and some trees that have shed those leaves. So chances are you got some beautiful stuff around you. Hit up Silent Nightmares Photography, and they can take care of you. You see the 71 car top of the racetrack. That is Jeremiah Stutzman. Thankfully, that car is somewhat mended together, but he is 6 laps behind pace, and that's not going to change anytime soon. We're only at 45 laps to go, and quite frankly, I don't see this race changing much. It still can, I just don't see it changing much. But one thing that I think we've kind of discounted a tad bit, Emerson, just watch when cars come out of turn 2 and kind of watch the differences, watch the variation here. It's kind of interesting, almost fascinating to just watch where these guys exit the corner. You see a couple of cars kind of come out from the bottom, one a little higher than the other. That was Fitzpatrick ahead of Powell. As they battle, they duel for the 6th position. Here come a few guys. You see Gardner way up top of the racetrack, Schumacher off the bottom. These guys kind of bottom to middle. There is definitely some variation. I think the fast line is almost unanimous, bottom side of the track, but if you're later in run, you can move around.
Absolutely. And you notice here, and the more we look at it, right, the more you see, drivers who, were like right there, just came out of a battle, drivers who love the handling of the car, drivers who are trusting by handling of their car. You'll notice with their line on the exit of the corner. You'll see here, entering the corner, center corner, they're pretty much all going to be on the bottom unless there's a car to the bottom, which you'll probably have to run on that outside seam. But it's corner exit and maybe even a little bit of corner entry where you get to see really how these cars are handling.
St. Court the racetrack a little bit there, as is McMahon. Villalobos down on the bottom side, trying to hook that seam. Cortez, Berger, Service, all underneath that bottom seam. I think that's important to take note of as Stutzman runs a little high. He's got damage, though. That's Bailey running with his right sides on the seam, but you saw Jennings back down under the seam. Simpson under the seam. I think that's really important to take note of. I think this, honestly, for some of those drivers that maybe struggle at a place like Homestead, this is something to watch. Just take one of these cameras like this and just watch how drivers attack the corner. Watch where drivers are able to put themselves and try and mirror that. And, without seeing throttle tracing, it might be a little bit difficult, but it's actually fascinating to watch the same drivers at the same marks in the exact same spot in the corner, lap after lap. And again, the top three came around and they were under that seam, and then Jennings actually hopped the seam that time. Fascinating.
And it's weird. You can even use that seam a little bit, right? And what I mean by that is sometimes you'll drive a track, say like Kansas, and you'll catch a seam, and that's bad news bears. But the way you use the seams, because of the track's progressive banking, it changes the car's balance. If you're a little tight, if you're a little pushing tight, if you can clip the seam just right here in corner exit, it'll kind of like it'll straighten you back out. It'll kind of negate the understeer up off the corner. It's a really finite balance, right? And it's not something that a driver's going to be able to hit every single lap. But if you know where that sweet spot is, and if you know how to use it, you could use those seams to your advantage.
Watching on board with Max Service, who sits in the third position. He's got 8 seconds to Jonathan Jennings, but is nearly now 1 second behind Seth Berger. And earlier in this run, Emerson, we talked about Service having a chance at Berger to maybe flip the script of their battle, and it sounds like Berger is going to walk out of Miami with maybe a narrow advantage over Max Service. And really, I think what's actually getting compelling here, getting interesting, is they're starting to reel up on Vincent Cortez. Is Cortez maybe backing off a little bit? I mean, I don't want to throw him under the bus, but maybe at 95% to their 100%. I mean, we didn't see quite this narrow of a gap, I didn't think. All the while, Powell and Fitzpatrick are battling tooth and nail right now for 6th. Powell not in the playoffs. Fitzpatrick desperately needs that spot.
Absolutely. Fitzpatrick looking to try to maintain the advantage that I'm sure a wild Schumacher is going to be trying to fly through the field with here. And all the while, he is 7 seconds back of Reeves.
Whoa, Fitzpatrick. What a catch.
He needs these spots to put any cushion between them as he survives a wild moment there off the corner. And that's why I wouldn't be... Oh, Powell, another big bobble. I think he caught the seam there the wrong way.
Yeah, well, I think as well, Fitzpatrick started to come up the racetrack a little bit to track out of turn 2, and that might have caught Powell off guard a bit, and he had to correct up the track, had to quickly move his hands. Thankfully, no contact, and that battle gets separated. Fitzpatrick into 6th. What concerns me a tad bit is that really hurt Fitzpatrick's run. I mean, that really slowed him down those last couple of laps and took at least a half second, if not a second, out of his sails between himself and Schumacher. Schumacher on 10-lap better tires is just slowly working up to him. A couple of tenths a lap, a couple of tenths here, a couple of tenths there. But at the same time, Schumacher is going to get to Powell and likely meet the same resistance. So this is really playing a big role in specifically the cutoff line. And then you've got Reeves here in 9th and Scott Bailey in 12th. They are very much must-win territory after this race. Reeves really hasn't made anything up, and Bailey, sure, he made up a lot in Stage 2, But I mean, he might be ahead of Reeves now, even though they're 4 positions different on the racetrack. I'm just a little concerned with how far back he is right now, a whole lap down in 12th position. I'm a little concerned for car 11.
Yeah, not ideal. Absolutely not ideal for Scott Bailey. And it's going to have to hope for something to change here in the late runnings. But it's trying to play this one out. And as far as with Kevin Powell, maybe not with the same connection as the rest of Last Chance Racing is, but he is Jonathan Jennings' brother and has that Last Chance Racing connection. I couldn't believe he fought his playoff teammate that hard. And we watch on here with Bailey. He actually probably appreciated that. So it's going to be intriguing to see how the math works.
Powell's not done.
Yeah, here he comes.
Powell's got 2 lap better tires than Seth Fitzpatrick. And quite frankly, he is not at all done with him. He is definitely trying to race that 2 car and get that 6th position away. For a moment of that, maybe you could argue they were trying to work together now, but Powell pulls down to the inside on the backstretch, and Seth has to fight him off into 3 and 4. Powell, yeah, he was looking for the bottom. That closed up quickly. He has to back out of it, bobbles for a moment up the racetrack, and loses a 10th. It's kind of intriguing how tough these guys are fighting right now for this position in particular. Fitzpatrick needs it. Powell realistically doesn't, and he just doesn't want to give it up. He's racing. He's here to race. He doesn't care about those points.
Certainly, and for what it's worth, he's not obligated to do anything. I'm just sure it would have been a nice gesture to give your teammate a little chance. But here comes Powell up the inside, looking for 6th once again, and I can only imagine this is helping Adrian as he sees the time on the relative grow smaller and smaller between himself and that 2 car.
Fitzpatrick has got to be getting a little frustrated at this point. Nearing 30 laps to go, and he's got worse tires and only 5 seconds of a gap now to Adrian Schumacher. And I mean, no disrespect meant, but it's definitely seemed like the Swift Racing bunch has had better speed all night long. You've got Cortez, Berger, and Service, the top 3 in the race. Jennings is 4th, I think, as a result of the strategy and the pace. And really from there, you've got, Powell, Fitzpatrick, they're kind of sorting out here. I think realistically the 2 has slightly worse pace for sure.
I would agree with that. He needs to kind of capitalize on runs like these where he could have maintained a gap over Adrian, and Powell probably ate a second, 2 seconds, maybe even 3 seconds out of that gap for Schumacher to catch. And now I don't know what the tire balance is going to be when they meet each other, right? I don't know if the tires are going to balance out between Adrian and Seth, but at the moment Adrian has a certain advantage in the gap that's quickly dwindling.
We're on board with the Adrian Schumacher. You see the gap down to 4.2 seconds and slowly closing. Adam Gardner, by the way, now 20 laps down. Does he have some damage maybe? No damage, I don't think. Might have just decided it was time for him to park the car, unfortunately. And that seems like it's done for him, but
what he'll do is league owner, sometimes it's just not his day. He'll pull off, just race control the rest of the race, make sure everything goes nice and smooth. And I think that it's kind of been one of those days as well. Yeah.
And he might be needed, depending on how some of these battles go. He might be needed. I gotta feel like if you're Seth Fitzpatrick, you're definitely bringing something up. Maybe not in the team meeting, but maybe just to Kevin Powell, like, hey, man, I really needed that spot. I really needed that time on the racetrack even. Just that time would have done so much more. And granted, Fitzpatrick is still ahead of Schumacher by some time on the racetrack, but if we had the estimation, I guess, the
AWS
yes,
battle track.
Yes, we're thinking of the same thing here. The estimation of when the 82 would be within striking distance of the 2 car, definitely it's going to be sometime before the end of this race, per trends. You got to get Larry Mack in here for that one, but per trends right now, Schumacher should definitely catch, if not pass, the 2 car. And I think Seth definitely has to look back at that battle with Kevin Powell as the reason that it's going to happen as soon as it is going to happen. When it happens, we don't know just yet, but it seems like it's going to happen a lot sooner than it would have otherwise. So it could be a very big defining moment, honestly, and who not only goes to the championship race at Richmond Raceway, but also who wins that championship race and who takes home this Outlaws Sim Series Season 3 Next Gen Cup Championship.
Now think about it now, Andrew. We're at 26, we're down to 25 laps to go. We have a playoff spoiler in the lead with a lead getting bigger. I mean, we're now looking at potentially 2 spots now being up for grabs points-wise. And with Atlanta next week, it could be, 3 spots. Maybe it might just be all 4 with how crazy Wilkesboro could get. So points become, an increasingly bigger factor as they mean a little bit more with now 2 spots potentially up for grabs if this race continues to play out.
At the same time, with Wilkesboro looming, do we see maybe some short track racing, short track tempers come into things? Do we see maybe a few bumpers, a few doors here and there, some contact with these Outlaws Sim Series drivers? It's very much a possibility. We see them race very respectfully on nights like these, but we also see them get a little bit rough when they need to, when they feel like they need to for their season anyways. So, yeah, we'll see here in a couple of weeks' time at Wilkesboro. It's going to be, I think, rather intriguing, again, rather captivating, compelling, if you will, as to how things wrap up. That was a big catch for Villalobos right behind the leaders here. And it looks like McMahon has just been passed up very easily by Scott Bailey, actually. That is for 11th position. And Bailey actually might unlap himself. And then St. Cor is up the road. So I think Scott Bailey could still top 10. As actually there's Stutzman to the pit lane. The gap right now, it's going to reset in a moment. It was tracking to McMahon that lap. Now it's going to track to St. Cor. A little over a second. And it's closing for sure.
Yeah, the top 10 very much up for grabs and intriguing here to see how it works out. If something were to happen late in this race. By the way, this is also the battle for the lucky dog position that is brewing up here as Cortez puts St. Cor 1 lap down. That's another thing to keep in mind should it be needed.
And once Bailey passes St. Cor, he's only 1 spot behind Jacob Reeves. Granted, that's going to be about 3, almost 4 seconds on the racetrack. He could actually catch the 22. He could go for 9th, which I think all things considered, it's not a terrible night at that point. Just moved into the top 10 and moved into lucky dog position, as you mentioned. So if we get a caution at some point, he gets that lap back and is back in this race. But obviously, we're not expecting a yellow. We never really do on an intermediate track with the Outlaws Sim Series. So now you got to think again about just trying to get points. He could finish just 1 position behind Adrian Schumacher, 2 positions behind Seth Fitzpatrick. I know that's not what he needs to be doing. He needs to be beating them by a few spots, but damage control, especially when you have the strategy he played. Because the strategy he played put him in this spot, Emerson. He went out there, led some laps, finished, 4th in stage 2, 5th even, which is fantastic. Picked up, all the stage points he could have asked for at that point. His teammate went out and won the stage. I just don't think it's going to be enough damage control, unfortunately.
It's not going to look like it tonight, certainly. But maybe it's a slight momentum booster to, maybe see the points cushion be dropped, or a points deficit be shrunken a little bit. And with the importance of points maybe come into play a little bit more. And, maybe something happens at Atlanta and the amount of points you gain today could be a huge factor heading into North Wilkesboro. Who knows what is on the table? Because, really, nobody really knows going forward other than maybe what's happening in the next 18 laps if you're one of the front runners.
Well, here you go. This is the most important battle on the racetrack currently between Fitzpatrick and Schumacher. They've caught each other. Schumacher is caught and passed Fitzpatrick just like that. That looked rather easy for car 82. And let's see, we theorize it's about a 3 or 4 point gap. That makes it 3 then if it was 4. It makes it 2 if it were 3. So it's still razor thin. It's just likely flipping to Fitzpatrick's advantage. But now you begin the damage control if you're Seth Fitzpatrick. If you're Adrian Schumacher. You might be losing that spot, technically out after today, but you're able to now start working on a spot or two. You're only 1.6 seconds back of Kevin Powell. You could tighten it right back up to be a 2-point gap after today. It's not the end of the world. It's just not a good day, I think.
Certainly, you don't want to come out of, any playoff race with a net negative in the playoff points. But for what it's worth, definitely not, Schumacher's track type by any means. Playing this race out fairly well for how let's be real, this is a stacked field of drivers. These are tough
and a tight field, only 22 cars.
Oh, yeah. You're right, only 22 cars, only 16 running, and most of these guys they're up there in the higher I ratings. I know Schumacher does not have the oval I rating to demonstrate that, because he doesn't do officials the way the rest of them do, but he's certainly up there when it comes to this. All of these drivers, like you said, razor thin, the margins between all these guys week to week.
If you want to talk about I rating, it's 4,600 nearly for Vinny Cortez, and that is the best in the field. So the fact that he's leading by the margin he's leading by makes a little bit of sense. 4 seconds over Seth Berger, who's at a 3,700. It's a 3,100 for Max Service, a 2,200 nearly for Jonathan Jennings, a 2,100 nearly for Hunter Simpson. It just keeps on going down. But then the surprises are Seth Fitzpatrick, 2,500. He's now running in the 8th position. Jacob Reeves, 3,400, running 9th. Scott Bailey, nearly 2,800, running 10th. You even got a 3,300 in Andrew St. Cyr running 11th position, and Justin McMahon at nearly 3,000 I rating is running in the 12th position. And how about Jeremiah Stutzman? After all of this tonight, not only is he now in a must-win situation, at nearly a 3,200 I rating, he is the final car on track after his issue out of turn 4 so many laps ago. He is 15th out of 15 cars left running in this race.
I mean,
and actually one car plowed at the wall at Scott Bailey on the outside. He does, though, get by Jacob Reeves, but now here comes Stutzman to go by. It's not for position. It's just a lot going on in one constricted area, as even Seth Berger has to work by some lap cars in the background. Just a lot happening, and now Jacob Reeves trying to fight off the race leader, but he will go one lap down.
All of that, by the way, happened, as you said, right in front of the race leader. I'm sure that had to be a heart-stopping moment for Vincent as well. And here's that battle between St. Cyr and McMahon for 11th. And McMahon trying to hold that advantage on the high side.
Villalobos a lap behind these guys, so they can battle kind of freely for this spot. And if one of them has an advantage, they might be able to use it on Jacob Reeves and try and reel him in from 4 seconds back. Is it likely? I'm not so sure, but they could at least give it a shot. The only real battle that I see in the top 10, though, Emerson, it's going to be Adrian Schumacher and Kevin Powell. He's starting to reel him in, and again, this is the damage control aspect, if you will, the recovery drive for Adrian Schumacher after a pointsless Stage 2. Was great in Stage 1, actually, I think, put a point on Fitzpatrick, if I do recall correctly. Yeah, put a point on Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick got 7 on him in Stage 2, I think. That made it 6, and now you're starting to see the recovery drive for Adrian Schumacher to start getting those points back.
And to point it out, Adrian stayed out. He's gotten laps led today. I don't believe Fitzpatrick has, or if he did, it was
good point. As he goes by for 6th.
Yep, that's another point right there.
So long as he stays in the race, as he blinks out a little bit into turn 3. We will take the 10 to go mark here shortly. Fitzpatrick now 2 spots behind Schumacher. Powell has to give that spot up quickly. And as far as the laps led for Fitzpatrick, correct. It is at 0, only as high as 3rd, and that was a big bobble out of 4. He's got to be careful. I think at this point, 5 seconds back to Bailey. Honestly, cruise. Just cruise to the end, take the 2 points, or the 4 points, or whatever you're going to gain over Schumacher, and just make sure you get to the end of this race without issue.
Yeah, and he has to. At least has to get into a rhythm. Because right there you see Stutzman's going by, not for position, but it kind of impacts the rhythm a little bit. Scott Bailey, he is running time 6-7 tenths quicker than Fitzpatrick. So he is not home free. He does have to find some sort of rhythm here, and this could be a feisty battle between teammates here towards the end of this.
Bailey down the track a little bit across the start-finish line. He's just recently put himself back onto the lead lap. It's a 4-second gap between 8th and 9th currently. I don't know, laps are dwindling. We're inside of 10 to go, and you know, a half second here, a half second there is not going to cut it. That time it was only 3/10, 4/10. That's not going to cut it right now. You got to make up more than that.
Certainly, but that's to the point as well. As you know, Fitzpatrick's got to settle in here, get into a rhythm, and at least finish this race out, because you don't want this to become an issue. You don't want this to be a blip on the radar and something to come about of a battle here between Scott Bailey, who very much is a desperate playoff driver here to try to make the next round, and Fitzpatrick, who's trying to be on damage control here. What seems to be a fall through the field, but you're right. Now the gap's kind of the speed and the pace is stabilized. Bailey's going to have a lot of work to do if he's going to catch Fitzpatrick here in the final laps. But it's something to still keep in mind.
That lap, right about the same mark, 3/10 a lap. That's just not going to cut it. I think, 3 seconds alone, that's 10/3 of a second. I don't know. It's not quite like that. It's 9/10 or 9/3 of a second. I'm doing some weird math currently.
That's 3 seconds.
Yeah, 3 seconds is 9/3 of a second. I'm trying to do some weird math, but yeah, he's not going to catch him on this pace is what I'm trying to get at. He's way too far back right now. He'd have to be like a second and a half back to catch him at this pace. And that time in the fence again in 1 and 2. It catches him a little bit, but he also loses a 10th there in the center of the corner. He's not going to get there. 6 laps to go now. He's not going to get there unless he really turns up the wick. But you know who is already there is Vinny Cortez. 5 laps to go this time by Emerson. This guy has just been there all night long. He has been the driver to beat, and I don't think there's any way you can really go against that. There's really no way you can disagree.
Certainly, Vincent Cortez, he's looked to be on a stellar pace tonight. He's now cracked the triple-digit mark there. I can't tell if that's 100 or 109, but that is a lot of laps still in the Bank 4 of a 23 machine. And for what it's worth, again, Vincent Cortez searching for his first Outlaws Sim Series win. He's had the pace at several races this season. His first start was Laguna Seca, so no. His second start at Pocono, he won a stage and he had pace there. Then had his run in with Jacob Reeves, and in Nashville, a track he likes to call Vinnyville, because when Nashville came out in the Gen 6 car, he set the world record lap for that week, and he had all the confidence in the world going to Nashville. Qualified up front, got the lead, and then was blinking. He was parked by race control for excessive blinking and was not able to finish that race. And it's just been thing after thing for Vincent in races where he's felt he's at pace and speed to dominate and win. That has kind of kept him out of the spot. And coming around to 3 laps to go, he's looking pretty stout.
And not only is this a big rebound for him, and I think a big riding of the ship, but this is also pretty much his home race. I know he's more local to the Daytona Beach area, but if it's not going to happen at Daytona, it may as well happen at Homestead, right? It's only a few hours down the road, I guess I-95, you could say, down to I-4. But regardless, this is a big, big opportunity for him to put it in victory lane at a place that is near and dear to him, very close by in real life. And he's doing so in dominating fashion. It's going to be about 114 laps led when things are said and done. He's got 6 seconds on the nearest driver, let alone 16 on the guy who's got the most wins on the season and has the most points currently out of anybody in the league. This is huge for Vincent Cortez. I think a big statement should he return next season.
Absolutely. And I think he's getting fired up about Outlaws races. He's always asking, what's the next race, and is eager to get back into these things. And it's shown up today. That is proof that he's going to back up that that anticipation. The white flag is out though for Vincent, presented by Whiplash Media Simcams.
1 lap to go. White flag here at Homestead Miami Speedway. And that time out of turn number 2, it looks like he's maybe going to let Scott Bailey keep on the lead lap. We'll see. And yes, at a turn 3, actually, he's going to dive down to the inside of car 11. But no matter what happens here, car 23 is going to victory lane at Homestead Miami Speedway. 114 laps led for Vincent. He finally has that first Outlaws Sim Series win, and he has got to be a force to be reckoned with in future races and future seasons here in the Outlaws Sim Series. A big, big win for Vinny.
Absolutely, and so happy for him. Because again, he's been through a lot trying to get to this point. He finally breaks through. And then Swift Racing, they showed their muscle today. Seth Berger, Max Service with the 2nd and 3rd, and Adrian rallies back to 6th. A great showing here for the first round in this 3-race round for Swift Racing. Can they keep that up with maybe some teamwork at Atlanta, and can they force anything at North Wilkesboro? It'll be fun to see, but there's some congratulatory taps from the teammates.
And a well-deserved burnout for the Nexus Esports number 23, 213 Simware, propelling him to victory here at Homestead. I can't wait for this interview, Emerson. I cannot wait to hear Vinny's excitement in his voice, especially with the domination, really, from Swift Racing in this series. Seth Berger 2nd, Max Service 3rd, sweeping the podium. I can't wait to hear from all 3 of them.
Absolutely. And Cortez, I'm shocked he didn't do a little bit more celebration there.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
I mean, he's gonna try maybe a straight line burnout here, like in the front straightaway that Larson did. Nope. Let's do a nice little Polish victory lap, a little cool down.
Either way, whatever he does here, well deserved for Vinny Cortez. And, he's a fun guy. He really is a fun guy. I don't mean a mushroom, but just a fun guy to have around in Discord, a fun guy to chat with and just banter with, really, in general. It's really cool to see him get this kind of win, this kind of dominating win. It didn't happen at some kind of super speedway or a short track on some kind of gimmick, if you will, or any kind of luck. No, this happened by pure domination for Vincent. Really refreshing to see a driver to show up and dominate like this and break through.
And also, what's kind of been a slim season for win. I say that, lightly. We've had like 10, a couple one-offs, so maybe like 12 different winners. But what's kind of been a big 6 to see like another face there. A little refreshing, but there he's parked up at the start finish.
Well, let's go ahead and bring in then the driver of the 23 car. Emerson, this is your deal, right? The Outlaws Sim Series, and Vinny Cortez just broke through for a big one. Here he is.
Well, let's go ahead and bring him on up. Vincent Cortez, you finally break through, and you get yourself an Outlaws win. But Vinny, it's not just any win. You absolutely dominated today. You went toe-to-toe with some of these drivers who are competing for a championship in about 4 weeks' time. You went, head on with your 2 teammates who have been at the top of the point standings. You went toe-to-toe with Jennings, who's been the class of the field this season. What does this mean to you to finally get it done and do it in the fashion you did?
Well, we kicked their butts today. That's pretty cool. I think it means a lot. We had a running joke that I couldn't finish a race and I was always wrecking. So to finally win and to win the way I did is pretty cool. It was a good race.
And now Andrew made the point, well, this isn't necessarily your home track. This is, still within, your home state. I'm sure Vat's also going to add a little bit more to it, getting it done at Homestead. How does that feel to kind of add another cherry on top? And is this something that we can kind of see going forward?
Yeah, no, I it's good. This has historically not been one of the best tracks, but when iRacing came here for their week, they had it. Spent a little time, and I really like it. It's nice to. It's not a good driver's track, and home state win. You can't go wrong.
There you go. And looking here, what do you think? I know you had a little bit of a teammate thing going on at Talladega.
Yeah.
We'll call it that with the last lap incident. What are you looking at then at Atlanta?
Just to stay out of it. I don't want to do that again. I was pretty disappointed in myself. I felt really bad for doing that. So stay out of it. And if my teammates are in front of me now that I got this win, and I can cross it off the list, if they're in front of me, they're winning. So hoping for good things to happen in Atlanta.
There you go. First career victory in the Outlaws Sim Series for Vincent Cortez. Feels like it's been a little time coming, but finally gets it done, and in dominating fashion as well. Congratulations, Vincent. And celebrate hard, man.
Hell yeah.
There you go, Vinny Cortez. Maybe not as much energy as I would have thought, but still, I think rather pumped to grab this race win here at Homestead Miami Speedway. Emerson, let's check out the full list of results after 175 laps here at Homestead Miami Speedway. It is a big list. I think if you look at just impacts here up at the front of the field, Vincent Cortez, of course, winning means that we are going to send at least 2 drivers to the Final Four based on points alone. That also means Seth Berger and Max Service, them being even, they're in really good spots. They have so many points just to themselves. They're actually going to have at least, 10, 15 points to the cutoff line, but that puts the onus on guys like Adrian Schumacher and Seth Fitzpatrick down there at 6th and 8th. Again, we estimate about a 4-point or 2-point gap somewhere to that number, between those guys after this race. It's going to be somewhere around there. We don't know exactly how much. It could be 3, it could be 1. It's going to be in that neighborhood, though, and the results tell the story.
Absolutely. Again, wild race, and it's crazy to see how it all came down. The Swift Racing team is there at the top. Jennings bringing home 4th, 17 seconds off the pace. That's not something we usually see out of Jonathan Jennings. And that's not to say that he slouched this race either. He was going forward, maybe had to save a little bit in that second stint to put him in that position. But I'll be at 4th place. Nothing to scoff at with the stage points he collected. Hunter Simpson in his first start with a 5th place finish is pretty good as well. Wonder what there is more to come out of Hunter. I wonder what track type maybe favors him. But a whole much more to learn about this new addition to the Outlaws Sim Series, and we'll see how it plays out maybe even the rest of the season. Adrian recovers nicely to 6th. Powell fights and wheels and deals his way to 7th. It'll be Fitzpatrick, the last car, on the lead lap in 8th, and the first 2 1 lap down. And Scott Bailey and Jacob Reeves, not the night Bailey wanted, but recovers fairly well to the 9th position, and Jacob Reeves brings it home 10th.
Finishing 11th, you'll find Justin McMahon and Andrew St. Cour there in 12th. The final 2 cars, 1 lap down. And then you'll find Julio Villalobos there in 13th spot, Doug Solms 14th, and Jeremiah Stutzman, the final car, running after 175 laps. He finishes 15th position, 7 laps down, with Adam Gardner there 16th, and Matt Rogers, Jason Miz, Matthew Setzer, and Greg Holt, your top 20, followed up simply by Nathan Aldrich and Devin Smith. Of course, these smaller fields than maybe you're used to with the NASCAR Cup Series, it tightens things up for points, Emerson, but man, that does not take any of the excitement away. That was a very, very compelling race. There was always a lot to talk about this evening, and I'm excited. It sounds like we're joining you for the rest of this Outlaws Sim Series season. That's exciting to me. We've got Atlanta, North Wilkesboro, and Richmond to go. 3 very exciting racetracks, and I'm absolutely stoked and ready to get it going. But let's go ahead and go to a quick break before we bring in a few more drivers and talk to them to wrap up this evening. That was a lot of fun. Vinny goes to victory lane, and a few more drivers with their thoughts are coming up here on Pit Stop TV. Welcome back to the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway here on Pit Stop TV with coverage continuing of the Outlaws Sim Series at Homestead, brought to you by this evening Silent Nightmares Photography. Again, check their page out on Facebook. That is Silent Nightmares Photography. We just saw one heck of a race wrap up with Vincent Cortez in victory lane and Seth Berger coming up in second place. Let's go ahead and bring in driver of the number 77 Burgart's Chevrolet Camaro. And Seth, first of all, one heck of a night, but you come up second place. What happened there?
It took me too long to realize what I needed to start doing. Towards the end or the second half of the first run, I knew exactly what I was doing wrong and how Vinny was able to get so far ahead. And unfortunately, it was too little, too late. Once I figured it out, I was able to stabilize the gap. But like I said, it was too late. It sucks that I didn't learn it in practice, what he was doing. But oh well, second, got a stage win, fourth in the other one, and finished second. It's a good points day. Didn't lose any points, gained a few. But going into Atlanta, I really wanted to win tonight. But congrats to Vinny. He was really fast. I know he put a lot of work in the officials when they were here.
And it certainly looks like you're going to walk out of this thing either even with or better than max service. So that's got to feel pretty good. You're likely walking out of Homestead second in the championship. 2 races to go in this round of 8 to lock yourself into the final 4. I know nothing is guaranteed, but that doesn't feel bad, does it?
No, not at all. It's always a good feeling to be above the cut line going into each race. It lets you feel a little more calm, confident to just drive hard still, but not drive on the very edge of wrecking it.
And how about this brand new Burgart's paint scheme as well, moving the number back on the door and some new kind of Miami Vice colors?
Yeah, I decided for this final round and maybe the championship, I wanted to do something different. You're going to see slid back numbers for the rest of this round. It gets people talking. I know you gave me a little crap for it in the Discord when I sent it, but it did exactly what I wanted it to do, is just get people talking about it. And I got the deal. I wanted a Miami paint scheme because I have a custom shirt that I made that has the same sort of color scheme, gradient. And if it's not claimed tonight, the deal was top 5 finishes $15 for the shirt. If it's not claimed by midnight, there will be another opportunity. And the code word for that other opportunity is Burgers in Miami.
And there you go. And where can these guys, where can the viewers claim this offer that you have going on?
All they gotta do is PM me where I finished and that they want the shirt, and they get the opportunity to buy the shirt for $15 only. That's over 50% off. It's first come, first serve, obviously. So just private message me on any platform: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, you name it.
What are those handles?
Berg_arts for all of them, with a Z at the end.
There you go. Berg_arts, just like it's spelled there on the hood and the side of the car. Seth, thanks so much for your time. Congratulations on the 32 laps led in P2 tonight. And hopefully we'll see a whole lot more of you at Atlanta next week.
I appreciate it. And thank you guys for doing the broadcast. And shout out Burger Nation for watching each and every week.
There you go. Seth Berger this evening wraps up with a strong running here at Homestead Miami Speedway. Not what he wanted. I think a little bit of disappointment there in his voice, Emerson, but he can't be upset, I don't think, with that run, especially when he comes home P2.
Absolutely a great run for driver of the number 77 Max Service. And next up, we're going to bring up teammate. Driver he ended up battling with a good bunch of that of the night. They're for the second position, but Max ends up coming up on the short end of that. Max, looked like you definitely had the long run pace tonight, but when you got up to Seth, it kind of stalled out from there. What kind of went on there, or was that kind of just the max of what the 81 could do tonight?
I thought I had something for Vinny. First run got held up in traffic going through there, and then as soon as I got to Seth, I caught his dirty air. Lit the right rear up a little bit, and then from there it was kind of over, and I knew it, and not getting to Vinny. I needed to clear Seth like immediately, and then I could have kept reeling Vinny in, and then we would have worked pit cycles from there. But after that, it was just kind of sit back, save the tires all day, and just kind of sit around until the last run of the race. I started putting some pressure on Seth, just like, if I'm going to pass him, I need to do it now, and I need to give him dirty air this entire run, so he lights his right rear up on fire and can't pass me.
So I know you put in a lot of work, likewise to Vinny, a lot of work in the officials this past week when they were at Homestead, or 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago when they were at Homestead. Did that pay off? Did you feel prepared for it tonight? I'd imagine that probably went a lot hand in hand with the third place finish. And I know you wanted to win, but does third still feel like a decent payoff for all that work?
Not really, to be honest. I wanted more. I wanted to win. That didn't happen, unfortunately. Good for Vinny, though. He got his first win. But, you know, it all comes down to that first run. If I don't have to work as hard passing as many tires, you know, and getting forced up to the outside as long as I did, I think it works out a lot better. Maybe if I had fought a little harder for some track position there. I just wasn't ready to get fought as hard as I did coming up through there and get fought as hard as I did on like lap 10 getting past, so I wasn't ready for it. Burned the right rear off and didn't get to the front, but all the work, you know, had everything to do with the back half of that run where I'm just passing tires, picking off tenths a second every corner. And, you know, knowing what the car can do, but it's disappointing to come home third, but still, overall, really good points day. You know, points are really important. Everybody's pretty tight here on points, so we're going to definitely need every point we can, which scares me for the next 2 races.
Certainly, I know those are going to mean a lot in the next coming weeks. But you'll lead today with a decent amount of stage points and a third place finish tonight. I think a good recovery run for this Starcom fiber throwback. And yeah, best luck to you in the coming weeks, Max.
Yeah, we might leave the Starcom power on her for the rest of the season. We'll see.
There you go. Third place finisher Max Service tonight. Not what he wanted, but still gets that podium positioning.
A solid run for Max for sure, and that brings us then to fourth place finisher tonight, Jonathan Jennings, who put together his own kind of oddball yet strong run in car 91. And Jonathan, let's talk first off about this strategy of yours. It looked great through stages 1 and 2, but then suddenly it looked like you were kind of just trying to tread water there in stage 3 and trying to make up some ground. What was the thought process? What was the goal, and did it work to your expectation?
I didn't hear all of that, I don't think.
So what was the thought process? What was the goal? What was the, did you meet your expectations for this strategy that put you, again, in a really good spot in stages 1 and 2, but kind of behind the 8 ball in stage 3?
Yeah, I didn't want to stay out too long in the stages and give up points. I just trying to counter what they were doing a little bit and just racing, trying to outrun the bottom 5 in the points, or 4 or whatever. Trying to get a little bit of cushion going to New Atlanta. I'm not real comfortable going there.
I know you might not be comfortable going to Atlanta next week, but you have the largest gap of anybody. You added to that tonight. Is there at least a slight sense of safety, even though you have 2 treacherous races coming up?
Yeah, a little bit. That was the goal, to try to create more of a gap in case of something happening at New Atlanta. But yeah, I'm more comfortable at short tracks. And tonight I kind of went a weird way with the setup, so it didn't do as bad as I thought it would. But
so then, is it any kind of safety net with Wilkesboro and Richmond, the last 2 races of the season? Wilkesboro, a race that you could, I feel like, easily win, being that you're one of the best short track racers in the field, and Richmond, definitely a race you could easily win. First off, to move on, and then to win the championship.
I gotta get to Richmond first. And there's a few other guys in here that can run short tracks just as good, if not better. Seth Fitzpatrick's pretty good. The other guys ain't no pushover either. They're hard to beat every week, so I'm gonna have to earn it.
There you go. Jonathan Jennings, 13 laps led tonight. A little bit all over the place, but as high as first, obviously, with those laps led, and finishes 4th. It was an up and down night, Jonathan, but congratulations on a top 5. We'll see you next week at Atlanta.
Thank you.
Pretty solid run there for car 91. It's kind of interesting, actually, hearing his thoughts about really not too much about the strategy, more so missing a little bit on the setup and just trying to put himself in a good spot to earn some points. So pretty much what we thought there, Emerson. Maybe not necessarily going for the race win, but trying to get those points that he got. and walk out of here in a decent spot. So he did that. I know we were kind of panicking there for him for a little bit, but he did exactly what he needed to do, what he wanted to do, it sounds like, and walks out of Homestead in a good spot. How do you wrap this one up, Emerson? I mean, you've seen the entire season unfold before your eyes. I've been here for limited parts at Laguna Seca, Charlotte, and now here. It's been wild.
Absolutely. One of the better races of the season, I think. We, of course, in typical Outlaws fashion, will go green to checkered, but again, we had insane and amazing racing in stage 1, and strategy was the talk of the town the entire night. Of course, the point scenarios helped by the fact that we have such a tight and stacked playoff field, at least with the top 6 and all their wins this season, kind of making the cut line very slim. We had something to talk about all night long, and we got a first-time winner out of it. Second playoff spoiler on the season, and a wild race at that. I think this race played out great for most of the playoff drivers, and Jeremiah Sussman, it is time to sound the alarm, because something's got to come about at Atlanta or Norfolk. But the good news for Stutzman is he already has a win at a super speedway this season at iRacing Super Speedway.
Yeah, I think 3 drivers in a must-win, and only 2 winning positions to move on. One of those 3 drivers at the bottom of the standings is confirmed out of this playoffs, out of the Final Four, no matter what. I think that's kind of an interesting way to look at it. One that you might not hear about usually with the NASCAR Cup Series and Xfinity Series and Truck Series, kind of talking about their playoffs. One of the guys at the bottom is out. Obviously, we know somebody's out in the top 6. 2 drivers are out of the top 6, or I guess if you say top 5, you split it into top 5 and bottom 3. Somebody in the bottom 3 is guaranteed out. They're all in must-win situations as of now. That's not how you usually see things, but that's kind of how we're going to present that here these next couple of weeks. A lot is going to change here with this Outlaws Sim Series. Let's talk about upcoming broadcasts for Pit Stop TV, though, because there is more than just the Outlaws Sim Series, but you see they're still highlighting right there in the center. First up, we have the Sim Pit Road Racing Series this Sunday, November the 6th, from Autodromo Nazionale Monza in Italy. That's going to be a lot of fun. GTE cars on the road course there. And, the following Sunday, you have the Sim Pit going to Red Bull Ring in Austria. But right in the middle there, a sandwich. Emerson, we're headed to Atlanta next week. And it's not the Atlanta that we saw earlier in the season either. It's not the old, worn-out surface. It's the brand new 28-degree banked surface. It's going to be bad fast, but we could see some bad situations with some guys, some bad crashes.
Absolutely. Talk about a high-speed week. We kick things off with the Temple of Speed, and we keep going with the Super Speedway and then the long straights at Red Bull Ring. Very, very excited to see how the Sim Pit races play out. And of course, we've had some amazing plate racing this season at all of the plate races, or the Super Speedway races, and I can imagine Atlanta's not going to be any slack. By the way, I like that we had to change Atlanta's mid-season. We got the opportunity to change Atlanta's midseason because it just added another factor to it. But you can catch all of the updates for all of our series here on Pit Stop TV. You can just check us out, give us a follow or subscribe or like and all that good stuff at facebook.com/Pit Stop TV, or Instagram at Pit_Stop_TV, or Twitter at Pit Stop TV _ live tonight on Twitch at twitch.tv/Pit_Stop_TV, and our YouTube channel, of course, youtube.com/C/Pit Stop TV1.
And how about that brand new bright yellow number 71 representing Pit Stop TV there for the screenshot? Boy, does that catch your eye. Worth mentioning, we are going to attempt to try to have the brand new to us, anyways, iFormula League Formula 3 Series from Montreal this Sunday morning at 11:30 Eastern, but that is not guaranteed, and I'll be rather candid as to why. This Saturday, we have actually the baby shower for Andrew Cardinale V, but that basically is just a lot going on. The next 3 days are going to feel like everything is just happening in an instant, and I'm just not so sure that we can commit to broadcasts on Sunday. So for any of you guys that might cross-pollinate from the iFormula League, IFL, Formula 3 Series. That's a mouthful for sure, but for any of you guys from there that might be watching this broadcast, whether it's live or after the fact, we're going to hope to have Montreal. We just don't know if it's actually going to happen. Otherwise, we do plan to pick up those races at Indianapolis and again at Suzuka to round out the season there. And of course, we plan to have the Sim Pit Road Racing Series. We'll have the Sim Pit Road Racing Series Sunday at 1:30 Eastern from Monza, no matter what. So, kind of a scheduling update there, if you will. But Emerson, it's been a lot of fun sharing the mic with you this evening. How do you put this into a few words to wrap things up?
It's been a blast. First off, that we got to cover this race together. We've covered races together, well, a plethora of times on the channel since I came on in 2020. But we've never got to call a race, both as the commentators for an Outlaws Sim Series race, and it was great tonight. You did an amazing job. By the way, drivers are still talking about the pit reporter performance he put on at the season finale last year. Seth Berger still raves about that to this day. But it was great to call an Outlaws Sim Series race with you. I'm glad you got to see one of these oval races play out from start to finish, and it was a great one. Again, strategy, a first-time winner, playoff spoiler, crazy points battles, and so many scenarios heading into an even more unpredictable race at Atlanta. Can't wait.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to look forward to these last two races of the season. Thanks so much for joining us here at Pit Stop TV. Big shout out to our partners on the channel, Whiplash Media SimCams, SimWrapMarket.com, and Permanent Makeup and Cryo in Maine. Emerson, it was a pleasure being alongside this evening. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Congratulations, Vincent Cortez, and hopefully many more to come for Car 23 here in the Outlaws Sim Series. We will see you next time from Atlanta Motor Speedway. Hopefully, though, we see you Sunday for the Sim Pit Road Racing Series from Monza. Otherwise, thank you, have a great night, and we'll see you there.